All right. Welcome, guys. Welcome. I might need to go turn on one more light just so y'all can see me a little bit better. But if you are new here and you haven't been to one of these, this is Totem Talks. I am one of your co-hosts, Osu, and with me is the wonderful Raz.
Hello. Here, if it makes you feel better, Osu, here, I'll dim myself a little bit. There you go.
Yeah, there we go. We can kind of match each other.
Yeah. A little more cozy vibe in here today.
You know, the issue I find with my lights is it's either like it's not bright enough, or if I turn on a light, it's too bright.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's no happy medium.
No in between.
Goofy Grape with the 245 bits. Happy 4th, everyone. Happy 4th of July. I hope you guys got your chance to celebrate. Go out, see some fireworks. You're probably hearing them off in the distance like I am right now.
Yeah.
But happy 4th. It's nice to have you guys here joining us, especially on this holiday. So
Yeah, happy Freedom Day. Thanks for choosing to spend it here with us, just chatting bullshit.
yeah, and guys, do we have a topic for you today? See what I did there? But we got some pretty interesting stuff to talk about, guys. We were a little bit late, mainly because we were spending a lot of time setting up the production. I think you guys are really gonna like the quality of how these videos came out. I'll definitely turn on a light here when we swap scenes, but I think you guys are really going to like the quality. I think you guys are going to like this conversation. And if at any point in time, if you have input, feel free to throw it in the chat. You know, this is our podcast. We're going to be talking, but we do want to hear from you guys because you guys can add to the conversation as well.
For sure.
But yeah, I think it's going to be pretty good. What do you think, Rez?
I'm excited. I think this is I mean, we kind of alluded to this last week, right? And we've kind of talked about this ever since the dev update, but I think this will kind of draw attention to the fact that behavior has said, you know, we're trying to remove the meta, we're trying to give people the opportunity to run different things, but a lot of these builds are very similar. We've just it's a tonal shift in the meta, but the meta's not gone.
Yeah, we spent a little bit of time talking about the meta that's coming in, what type of perks, what type of builds we think are going to happen. And as much as we tried to get creative, the rule we held ourselves to was like, not your mains. I'm not talking like the people who main killers, what are they going to run? Like, what is the generic, like the most popular meta for that killer that we think we're going to see a lot of people run, the casuals. So we tried to hold ourselves to that, and there was some killers that you guys are going to see that was difficult, kind of stuck out from the group, but you know, we found ourselves in the same predicament as before. So it's definitely going to be interesting, and I agree with Raz. It's definitely going to be like very eye-opening. But with all that being said, guys, before we roll into that, we are going to roll into one of our segments that we introduced last time on episode 2. One of my favorite segments, and that is Totem Trivia. So we're going to roll on over there, and do we have a good one for you?
So, depending on when you guys came in, you might have seen the bot posted the link already. But we're doing it with a straw poll rather than with a stream poll, because the straw poll is just kind of open for as long as we need it, whereas the stream polls can only be 10 minutes. But for this week, our question for you is, how much faster did Brutal Strength originally make you kick, and there was a downside to it? What was that downside? And your choices are, was it A, 40, 50, and then 60%, but it had a cooldown? Is it B, it was 10, 20, and then 30%, but you could only kick pallets? Was it C, 80, 90, or 100%, but you can only use it after you hooked somebody? Or was it D, 25, 30, and then 35%, but only once a gen finished? And you guys can use the command !Totem Trivia in the chat, and that will give you the link to the straw poll. And we're going to leave that up until the end of the stream, and then at the end of the stream we'll go back and talk about it. The bot also posts that link for you, I think about every 20 minutes, every 15 or 20 minutes, so that you guys will have it as a reminder throughout the stream to cast your votes if you haven't already. But I think with that, we're good to get started into the meat and potatoes of the day.
Alright, so hopefully that's better. I went and turned on a light. Alright, so, chat, do we have some interesting stuff for you guys today? So,
oh boy.
Like I said, the topic for today is really talking about like killers, the upcoming meta changes with the new updates coming out, and really what we think that their meta perks are really going to be. And what we're going to do is we're going to break it down one by one, go through each killer, and basically talk about why we chose these perks, what we really think about it, maybe some alternates, and listen to you. See what y'all's opinion is, what you think it's going to be like. If you agree, if you disagree, if you're a killer main out there and you main a specific killer that we talk about, we want to hear your input. There was a few killers we came across that we weren't quite sure what would be the best avenue for different reasons, but we want to hear your input. Definitely do.
Yeah, if you guys have an idea of something better, or if you think that a perk that's being changed is going to be tossed by the wayside because it's not as good anymore, then let us know.
And so, with that being said, guys, we're going to start it off right off the bat with the number one guy, good old Trapper. So, when it comes to Trapper, we're talking about perks that are changing. As you all know, Corrupt Intervention is taking a huge nerf. Basically, Corrupt's going to be dead for a lot of killers. So, the way Corrupt Intervention is going to work now, it's still going to have its 2 minutes value until you down a survivor. So let's say like the match loads up, you down a survivor within 30 seconds, your gens are no longer being blocked by Corrupt. So one of the big things about Corrupt Intervention was it blocked 3 generators from the start for a full 2 minutes regardless, and that benefited a lot of killers. Moving into the new update, that's not going to benefit a lot of killers, and a few of those we're going to talk about later down the line. But one of the killers that we think this perk is still going to be a staple in meta is Trapper. And the main reason is as a Trapper, those first 2 minutes that you have Corrupt Intervention blocking 3 gens, you're not trying to down somebody. You're not trying to get into a chase that early in the game. You're trying to collect your traps. You're trying to set up your 3 gen. You're trying to sector off the side of the map that you want. So, we strongly believe that Corrupt Intervention is going to be a strong perk for Trapper, but not a strong perk for other killers. With that, we also have Save the Best for Last. The thing about Trapper, being an M1 killer and one of the main 115 base movement speed killers, Save the Best for Last is going to be a pretty strong perk on him. It's going to allow him to recover a lot faster from his basic attacks. It's really all he can do aside from his traps. But if you remember with this new update, they're lessening the amount of time for the killer cooldown on swings. So Save the Best for Last technically just got like a shadow buff by accident. So, those 2 perks are going to be pretty strong on Trapper in general.
Yeah, so you've got, obviously Corrupt, still a great option. 2 minutes, huge. Set up your traps, work your 3 gen, and then move into getting into chase. Use your Save the Best for Last. The 10% reduction from a 3 second down to a 2.7 does mean that each stack on save is worth a little bit less, but that means that overall your attack cooldown goes down, which is big and helps you with Jolt, which doesn't have a cooldown now. You can jolt every single generator as often as you can smack somebody down. And if you catch somebody in a trap, you break somebody's ankle, it's almost always better to go for the M1. The one exception to that being, obviously, if it's your obsession, you don't want to lose your stacks, so you're going to pick them up out of the trap instead, if possible. But the Jolt now not having a cooldown means that you get your stacks and swing on everybody, swing all the time, and blow up every single generator in that 3-gen setup. And if the survivors start to push into you and start to try to break your 3-gen that you've set up, hit your gens with Eruption. You'll take the 2.5% off the top, which is the base kick buff that is coming, the 2.5% max progress. And then you'll mark it with Eruption, and Eruption is also being buffed. So now instead of 6%, you'll take 10% off when you down somebody. And I believe the incapacitate's going up to 30 seconds from I think it's 16 right now, like 12, 14, 16. So they're like damn near doubling the amount of time that survivors can't work on gens if they're working on gens when you down someone. So this whole build's kind of a very cohesive, like, get people down as quickly as possible, lose as little time as possible, but keep that 3-gen from your setup from the start of the game, from those 2 minutes that you have with Corrupt, where everybody's not able to work on things far away from you. So they have to kind of push into your zone and allow you to build that control early. And that's all I got, Trapper, if you got anything else, Osu.
Yeah, I think it's a good build that's going to like highlight his early game to mid game. Because one of the things we talked about as a Trapper, like if you're playing for end game, you're playing wrong. Trapper's biggest thing is his early game setup, and then being able to hold the game as long as possible during the mid. So I think this is a pretty strong build, and a lot of these perks are going to be in the meta. You guys are going to see a lot of these repeated for multiple reasons, and we're going to go into that with each killer. But ultimately, like I think this is going to be a very strong Trapper build, and me personally, I can't wait to test it out.
Yeah, and it's all it's a simple perk loadout for a simple killer. You know, Trapper's not super complex.
Yeah, very, very straight and to the point.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on from Trapper, guys, we're gonna roll into our next killer, which you should all know. It's good old Wraith.
So the first couple of perks we got on here, Pain Res and Overcharge. Pain Res obviously is taking a hit. You're losing the information of the survivors screaming. You're losing the information of the gen exploding and getting that loud noise notification. But on Wraith, that's not really a big deal. You're a base 115 killer, but at will you become 150. So, oh no, I don't know what generator exploded. Let me zip around the map in 4 seconds and find out. So it's not an end of the universe kind of thing to lose some of that information on Pain Res when a killer like Wraith will just find out anyway. He'll just move around the map, check his generators, no big deal. And if you do find a generator that was your Pain Res gen, so it's, it knocked that 15% off, but it's been tapped and you can see that there's nobody working on it currently, come over and hit it with Overcharge, and then just kind of linger for a little bit and just watch it while that speed ramps up from 100% to 400% over the course of 30 seconds. And that generator will go from, hey, we've made a little bit of progress, or hey, we're really close to done, to, well, that's 90 seconds that I have to spend on this generator again after just spending 70 or 80 working on it. So those two perks alone will keep your gens down as a Wraith, which I think is one of his weakest points.
Yeah, and the big thing too is considering his add-ons as well. You throw Windstorm on there, you throw Shadow Dance, you throw any of his add-ons that increase his speed of kicking gens, breaking pallets, his speed in general. I think with this new update and a lot of the base kit changes, they're gonna slightly make up for the nerf that he got quite a few patches ago, where they decreased his overall lunge coming out of Cloak. So with Pain Resonance and Overcharge, those both are going to be really good on helping him maintain control on generators. And then, of course, we have Lethal Pursuer and No Way Out. I love how Sword Emblem in chat's like, I already live in fear of this Wraith build. So, imagine as a Wraith, right? Wraith is probably one of the main killers that struggles right now after his nerf. But throw on Lethal Pursuer, and you're starting off the match the way that you need to. Hot and fast and already in chase. So you start off, you go straight for that first survivor, you go straight into your chase, start getting your hooks, start getting your pressure, to where you can really start building up. The whole idea behind this build is to be that type of Wraith. You're not trying to hold a 3-gen, you're not trying to, do like as much as you can on the gen side. You're just trying to get as many chases in, as many hooks as you can. If you have the time, pressure a few generators, but really set yourself up through the mid game into the end game, and hopefully by the time No Way Out goes, you can at least secure another 1 or 2. But depending on the add-ons, this Wraith could be a very, very intense build for Wraith.
Yeah, I think the making kicks faster base kit, plus the potential for Shadow Dance and the potential for Windstorm, this is going to be nasty. This is going to be really hard to deal with.
Yeah, I think we're going to see more of a, and I don't want to take it from you, but we're definitely going to see more of that active regression you were talking about, where killers are going to be involved a lot more in kicking. And with killers like Wraith, you're going to see a lot of Wraiths just flying around, smashing generators and smashing chases. I personally am not looking forward to going against Wraith after this update.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
But with that being said, guys, that's really all we got on Wraith. The Poncho Honcho back at it again, as Goofy says. But we're going to be moving on to our next killer of the topic, good old Hillbilly. William. So, the thing about Hillbilly, honestly, guys, I don't really see his meta changing too much. Lethal Pursuer is now, and until they nerf it, will always be a very, very strong perk on Hillbilly. Being able to start off your round, immediately go after somebody. I mean, I've seen cracked Hillbilly players. I've seen noob Hillbilly players like me. You give me Lethal Pursuer, I might be able to manage one hit at the start of the game. Corrupt Intervention it used to be a pretty good one for Billy, but obviously with the new update, Billy has the potential to instant down somebody within the first 10 seconds of the game. I think the fastest I ever got was 6, and I don't play Billy. So, Lethal Pursuer is definitely going to be his strongest perk, his strongest meta. And then we talked about it for a while, about really what is Billy's strengths. And in my opinion, if you're playing Billy, you're not trying to kick generators. You're not trying to waste a lot of time holding down a 3-gen like some other killers, where you have such high mobility and high insta-down capability that you just want to be in chase. And the best way to be in chase is to know where everybody is. So that's why we think Floods of Rage and Barbecue and Chili are going to be 2 really good perks on Billy. Barbecue and Chili no longer has the blood points, but it still does the aura reading. And the big thing is the new Lethal Pursuer adds an extra 2 seconds to every aura perk. And some add-ons, I believe. But
I think so, yeah. I think it works for everything that's aura reading.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that's what it said. So you're looking at using Barbecue and Chili and getting 2 more seconds. Those 2 more seconds, that's a lot of information. And then, survivors who expect Barbecue and Chili obviously will hide in lockers. But there's really no way for a survivor to know if a killer has Floods of Rage. So when that survivor gets unhooked and they have Floods of Rage, Billy's still getting more information. So this is really focused on just information, letting him know where everybody is, and he can just keep going back and forth from survivor to survivor, hook to unhook. And since we're already using a Scourge hook and we're not really trying to kick generators, Pain Resonance just fits perfectly into the build and helping, a little bit of gen regression while you're running around.
Yeah, I think the big thing you guys will notice here is there's a lot of builds that we've made that are 2 or 3 Scourge hook builds, and I think Behavior's doing that on purpose. I think Behavior wants these Scourge hook builds. I think they want these perks to be the cohesive thing, kind of how boon totems are for survivors. And this whole build just revolves around give me information as quickly as possible, as long as possible, so that I can find out where people are. Show me the survivors for as long as I can see them, wherever they're at, all the time. So, Lethal Pursuer to start the game, launch yourself at somebody, knock them down, put them on a Scourge Hook, ideally. And then, Pain Res to knock a generator down somewhere that the survivors have started on. And then you run off to the other side of the map with your barbecue information. And then by the time you get over there, you knock somebody down after seeing them with barbecue. You throw them on a Scourge Hook. Now somebody's gotten the unhook on that first survivor who's on a Scourge Hook, and Floods of Rage gives you all the information you need to know exactly where to go after that, and just create this kind of like Blight, right? This kind of ping pong back and forth between hook states effect, where you're just constantly in chase, you're constantly on somebody, you're always getting information, you're always getting Scourge Hook value in a perfect world. So this whole build just revolves around keep the aura reading, keep the pressure on, and survivors won't have the time to do the generators, so you don't have to kick anything.
Yeah, I truly think a Billy that can see where I am is pretty horrifying.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I've gone against some Billies that, can do some crazy things, and if they could see my aura through half the game, like, I'm just imagining, like, a Billy on Blood Lodge just zipping around like crazy. I think it's definitely going to be a strong build, because a lot of people underestimate, information, and we are moving away from gen regression meta. So what is the new meta? I think a lot of it's going to be a mixture of information, a little bit of gens, and probably a few other things that we're going to see on some other killers. Foreshadowing.
Yeah. So I think with that, let's head into Nurse, everybody's favorite, huh? The fan favorite in Dead by Daylight. And I'll just kind of tell you here, I don't think a lot of Nurse has changed, to be totally honest. She was already a weird killer. She was already kind of the outlier in the game. She doesn't participate in standard gameplay as it is. So the only thing that really changed here, I think, is the addition of Floods of Rage and Jolt. The Starstruck Agi is exactly the same, but Jolt not having a cooldown, and she's all M1s, that's important. Starstruck, obviously, a killer that doesn't have to go around the wall and can just go through it and kill you. She's going to take that all day. So I don't think much has changed here, and I don't know that there's too much to talk about other than those middle two perks, Yeah,
I agree. I don't think there's a lot to say about Nurse. Nurse is one of those killers, well, not one. She is the killer in the game that literally ignores all fundamentals of the game. She goes through walls, she goes through pallets. There's really nothing that other killers can do that even slightly compares to her. And I mean, when you look at it, the Starstruck Agi is the biggest, most powerful combo on Nurse. I know almost every Nurse main I watch is running Starstruck and Agi. It's a really good combo. A lot of Nurses run it for the sole purpose of it's a lot of great insta downs. But when it comes to Jolt, Floods of Rage, we changed up this perk a little bit from probably what you normally see, which I think most Nurses run Barbecue instead of Floods of Rage. But you definitely are going to see, I think these two would come out, and you're not going to change the Starstruck aspect of the Nurse build, but this is going to give her a little bit stronger gen regression and still give her the information she needs to do what she needs to.
Yeah.
Guns don't belong in DBD, proceeds to fly through solid objects. Well, for the longest time, and we'll get to him, but for the longest time, people didn't think a gun could work in DBD, and then they came out with Deathslinger. So,
yeah.
And it's just kind of crazy. But yeah, I don't think there's a lot to say about Nurse. I mean, until they address Starstruck or address Nurse herself, I don't think anything's going to change in her meta.
Yeah, the only thing we're really seeing here is a change in the information perk. And the regression going from something like Ruin or Pop into Jolt, because Ruin and Pop are both not as viable now, and Jolt's all the time.
Yeah, and technically Jolt's still a passive regressing perk.
Yeah, you still don't really do anything.
You ain't got to worry about kicking gens, you just got to down people. I mean, it's not as good as Ruin, but for somebody like Nurse with her traversability, it's good enough.
Yeah.
But
does what it needs to.
Yeah, but with that, like we said, there's really not much more to say about Nurse. But then we roll into everybody's favorite long-range killer, except Deathslinger. But we got Huntress here. So talking about Huntress and what's gonna change for her, there's so many different ways you could go about Huntress. You could definitely run some gen regressions, which I'll kind of come back to that point when we talk about some other killers down the road. But we kind of wagered what was the best potential build for a Huntress overall, and with all the perks and updates coming out, like Lethal Pursuer is still going to be a really good perk on her. I mean, she can start off almost immediately, go find who she needs to, chase them down. Really, I don't see a lot of Huntresses using a lot of gen regression, such as Pop Goes the Weasel, such as Overcharge. So for Huntress who's really chase-driven and focused on chase, Deadlock is a pretty strong perk that's just going to kind of slow the game down as you go through it. And really just kind of help you on that side of the generator aspect where you're not really focusing on them. But the big thing is, guys, you got to remember, with this new update coming out, you don't need gen regression perks. I don't remember the numbers. Raz knows the numbers, but they buffed the entire when a killer dry kicks a generator. It used to really not do much of anything, but now you actually get some really good value from dry kicking a gen, especially if a survivor comes in right behind you. So this build's kind of focused on the base kit. Gen kicking is already good enough. I don't need gen regression. But what do I need? Early game pressure, mid game pressure, and Huntress is the devil at end game.
Yeah, she is a monster when that end game starts. I think the thing here, right? So Lethal Pursuer, obviously great, get a good start. Find your first person, land those crazy cross maps if you're Coconuts or somebody who can actually play Huntress, who's not me. The Deadlock turning a 90-second generator into 120 seconds on every generator every time. So somebody finishes a gen, and then that next closest gen goes to a full 2 minutes. You're kind of giving yourself what Corrupt does now, right? Where it buys you 2 minutes on 3 generators, but now you're turning 4 generators into 2 minutes over the course of a match. Agitation, I think, is still a beautiful perk on Huntress because she's not a chase killer in terms of she doesn't chase like Blight, but she needs to bounce between chases very, very quickly, and when she downs somebody, get them on a hook and immediately look for somebody else. So the faster she can do that, the better, and Agitation is the best perk to do it with. And as a killer who has a very small terror radius, but her massive lullaby, she's not as easily tracked as other killers are with Agitation on. And something like Blood Warden, I know Huntress mains and Huntress players in general run some weird, off-the-wall, random-ass shit.
Like perks you'd never expect.
Yeah, and Blood Warden seems to be a really popular choice on her, and for good reason. If you can down somebody, open a gate, throw that person on the hook, and then lock everybody in there, I mean, you're Rorschach, right? I'm not locked in here with you, you're locked in here with me. And she can hold them hostage with this Blood Warden counting down, so this still gives her that endgame power where if the survivors power through these gens that are going to take at least 2 minutes each, and if they get everybody saved, and if they're very good at running her in chase, and if they're very good at hiding, if the stars align for the survivors, she still has a way to come back at the end of the game.
And the crazy thing to me is Blood Warden's a hard perk to get value for most of the time. But Huntress, I would never once in my life think that a Huntress would have so much potential with a Blood Warden. But I have seen so many Huntresses run Blood Warden and almost always get value from it. It's just the killer I don't expect to get Blood Warden value gets Blood Warden value. It's kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, and I think with the DS change for survivors, right, with
Oh
DS activating
yeah.
on exit gates being powered, Huntress now becomes even more of an endgame monster than she was, because who cares if they get the save? Throw a hatchet, knock the BT out, throw another one, put them on the floor. No DS, cool, I'm putting you right back on a hook again.
And if you're talking about the oak shaft being in there too, and you're dumb enough to go for a save, like you're potentially getting somebody down during the save, and then getting somebody down after the save. Like people underestimate long range killers when it comes to end game, and Huntress is gonna be very scary to go against. To where if you're opening that door, you better just GTFO.
Yeah, just run, dude.
Just leave them behind. Don't go back. There's more
Yeah,
games.
not worth it. Sorry, dude. Hold the L for this one. Better luck next time.
Oh man, I do love me some spicy huntresses though. So
Yeah.
that one's gonna be a pretty interesting one to see in the future. But rolling into the next one, we got my least favorite killer to ever go against. No, no.
I love me some Mikey, man.
Oh
And
man.
this, I know we kind of talked about this, and I do want to touch on this corrupt intervention on Myers.
Yep.
Yes, he's a chase-driven killer. Yes, he has the insta-down potential in Tier 3. Yes, he wants to find people and stare into their souls as he powers up to his ultimate form. But buying yourself 2 minutes, and buying yourself 2 minutes where the survivors will come towards you because the three farthest generators from you are blocked. Let's say you're on Ironworks. Mikey runs into that main building, he runs up top and finds those broken windows. You can stalk through those windows down to people that are working on generators nearby. And you can just sit there and stalk all the way up to 99% on your tier 3, and you're good to go. And maybe then you pop your tier 3 and you lose Corrupt, but now you have this incredible, like, snowballing powerhouse of a start. And to go with that, you bring something like Bamboozle, which I run Bamboozle religiously on Myers. He already has faster vault speed in tier 2 and tier 3, so I don't run it to make me faster at vaulting. I don't care about that. But if I get to an LT wall, I want half of that turned off. I want that survivor to have to leave so that I can catch them out in the open with Myers' like 6 mile long lunge while he's in tier 3. So I think Bamboozle's still going to be important on him. I think Corrupt is huge. I think unless you're memeing with a perma tier 1 and you're forcing yourself to go inside, at which point Corrupt doesn't really matter. Corrupt is going to be important for those that are actually still cycling through tier 3s, going down to tier 2, back up to tier 3 over and over again throughout the course of a match.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. I think that's something a lot of people don't realize when it comes to corrupt intervention. Because I'll be honest, I hate going against Myers, but as many times as I go against a Myers, I don't see corrupt used on him. And the thing is like I've played Myers a few times. You know, when I'm not memeing around my see-through walls and taking survivors to Larry's and things like that. Like the few times I've genuinely like played Myers to play Myers, I always find myself like not having enough time. And maybe it's because, I'm not a Myers main. I'm learning the stalking, things like that. But, corrupt intervention is going to give that extra amount of time needed for that stalks. And I really think the whole point of this build is it's to buy him time. Corrupt intervention buys you time at the beginning. Deadlock's going to buy you time throughout the game and gives you information at the same time. Then Bamboozle's just to help Myers out in his chase because nobody wants to be stuck with a Myers bamboozled inside Killer Shack. And, of course, you don't want to be kicking generators as Myers. You want to be focusing on your stalks and getting your kill as quickly as possible. So, again, with Jolt's new update coming in, Jolt is going to be a really big perk for a lot of M1 killers. And you also got to remember that Jolt is a general perk. You don't have to tier 3 any killer to get Jolt. So it's going to be like you're brand new to the game, you just started killer, and Jolt's going to be one of the first gen regression perks you have access to. So Jolt's definitely going to become one of the biggest gen regression meta just because of its accessibility.
Yeah, Jolt with the removal of Demogorgon, right, and them changing from Surge to Jolt, and then making Jolt not have a cooldown. Even experienced veteran killers with hundreds or thousands of hours in the game, this becomes a very very enticing choice. This is free regression all the time for doing your job, which is one of the biggest things for killers is how can I make it harder for the survivors while I'm doing my job.
And this is also assuming that these perks don't change from the PTB to live servers. Keep in mind, like, at the time of this recording, we are talking about the 6.1.0 PTB. It is still not live. Things can still change, but this is kind of where our thought process is. And, if people just don't want to play Myers, that'll make my Survivor days a lot better. I'm okay with that, so. It's like my one weakness,
Yeah, leave him on the shelf. Pick somebody else.
Yeah, play somebody else, please. I don't need heart attacks every time I stream. I'm waiting for the day I go against just James because he goes for streamers, so we'll see.
Yeah, he'll find you someday.
All right, the next killer. I'm never a big fan of either, and. If you've been watching our series, which is live right now, Survive with Frenemies, we've had some great run-ins so far with good old hags.
Yep.
It's definitely gonna be interesting seeing hag come into play, but just like Trapper and Myers, hag is one of those killers that needs a little bit of time in the early game. So, even though Corrupt Intervention's dead for a lot of other killers, hey, we told you guys you might see a lot of these perks again. Corrupt Intervention is gonna be one of those perks that's really good on hag. It's just gonna help buy her time to set up her traps, declare her 3-gen. If she spawns in the Corrupt zone, which it shouldn't because Corrupt is the generators that are farthest from you, but if she's anywhere near those Corrupt gens, she can start setting up her 3-gen there. She can start setting up her 3-gen around the gens that aren't blocked because that's where survivors are going to get pushed to unless they try and wait out Corrupt. It's just one of those setup things. It gives her those 2 minutes. As long as she doesn't down anybody, gives her 2 minutes to set up her web. And then it comes into the point of, what's really the best strategy to play as hag. And I'm not a hag main. I'm not good with these setup killers. I'm not good as Trapper. I'm not good at hag. Probably could get good if I practice them, but I'm impatient. I'm not much of a setup guy. I'll admit it. I'm impatient. But one thing I am good at is holding down a 3-gen, and I do it a lot with a lot of the killers that I play. Hag does have the potential to where if she sets up her traps right, she can hold down a very hard 3-gen. And the next 3 perks that we are putting on her literally is just going to help her hold it down even more. Both Eruption and Overcharge have received buffs in this PTB. Eruption, basically, you still highlight every generator you kick. If the generator explodes, it now takes more progression than it used to. I think the old one was, 8% res?
It was, it's 6 right now. It's 6%.
All right, so it was 6 or it is 6?
It was 6. It's going to 10.
Yeah, so it was 6%. It's now 10%. And the biggest thing is the incapacitated status. If you're a survivor and you're working on that generator and hag down somebody else, it's going to explode. And previously you used to be incapacitated for, I think it was 10, 12, 15, something like that, to where you can't do anything. You can't heal. You can't do gens. You can't do nothing. Well, they upped that to 30. So that's a full 30 seconds that you can't interact with anything, which gives hag time to hook a survivor, come back over, and kick that generator with, if they wait for Eruption to recharge, or they can just kick it with the Colubrine Overcharge combo, which together is going to give you, they say it caps at 500%. So it's going to give you 500% gen regression. And then you throw some traps on there. No survivor's going to run up and touch it and stop it. So you're looking at a mean, nasty 3-gen. And that's without even thinking about Colubrine's informational aspect. So it's going to be... This would be a very disgusting build to see on a hag.
Yeah, I love this discussion topic of, well, it caps gen regression at 500%.
Like, that's a lot of percent, man.
Yeah, do you understand how fast that gen is dying? 500% is crazy. What do you?
like,
That's not something to be proud of.
like,
Like,
like Ruin only did 200%. And the funny thing is, like, Call of Brine with overcharge totals to 600. And they're like, oh, it's okay. It caps at 5. You're like,
yeah,
okay, okay.
yeah, no big deal, guys. It caps at 500%, not 600. Great. That's still against a hag. I mean, what do you do if she gets a triangle of gens? You know, she finds 3 generators that are all really close to one another, puts down a small handful of traps, and then puts a survivor right in the fucking middle.
Yep.
Now what?
That's game. That survivor's dead. That hag is camping it out. Like, you don't stand a chance. And Call of Brine doesn't even have a cooldown. So
Yeah, you can just do it to everything. All 3 of those gens can be hit with Call of Brine. You can have that overcharge on it. Overcharge still gives the skill check, so when a survivor gets on it, you know, and if they fail that skill check, it blows it up for more percent off. And then every time she downs somebody, she gets eruption value, and then you can't work on the generator. People talk about Legion. This hag's gonna keep you hostage in a game forever.
And you know what's one thing I didn't think of when we were talking about this? So, like, Overcharge has that skill check, right? Mm-hmm. So, let's say they hit that skill check. Call of Brine tells them.
Yeah.
Call of Brine will tell Hag that you hit that Overcharge skill check. And now Hag knows to come back. Yep. And then the second they push you off of it, they're going to hit it with Call of Brine and they're going to hit it with Overcharge. Oh my god.
It's just going to be this awful, this nasty cycle of, I can't do more than 3 seconds of work on this generator, and then Hag is on my ass.
This is... I pray I never see this, to be honest. Like, oh man. Like, I'm just imagining the Hags that we went against and survived with frenemies. Imagine if one of them had this build. Like, oh god. Like,
yeah. Absolute honestly, misery.
Out of all the killers that we've talked about and that we're going to talk about, I think this is the worst one so far.
This one's definitely up there. This is not a build that I want to encounter on a hag with experience.
Oh, no, not at all. No.
A new hag, no big deal, really. It's just some inconveniences. But a hag that has experience, that knows what she's doing, that has played hag for a long time, this might be one of the few times that I just alt F4, dude. I just take the L.
Just, nope. Oh, and you know, this is just perks. You know,
yeah.
throw on shackles on there. Like, oh, nah, man. Like,
yeah.
This has a lot of potential to be a very, very strong build. So
yeah, this I think will be, when you see hag on those rare occasions that you find her, this will be the build that right now is like Legion for most people, where they're just like, you know what, I'm just gonna DC. I don't like. Nope, not having it.
Yeah, you're talking about like Forever Freddy and Forever Min Legion. Now you got like Hag holding down 3 gens forever. Yeah. Like,
yeah, this is this will be difficult to beat, I will say.
A part of me wants to see it in action, but I don't want to go against it.
Yeah, show me how somebody else deals with it. Don't put me in there.
Yeah. So if these perks stay the same, you know, we might have to bring Luna back, because Luna used to be a hag main. Might have to bring Luna in and test this out and get some of the homies and see how it goes.
Yeah.
You know, we'll be in the spectator seat though, Raz. Like we know.
Yeah, I will watch from a distance. I will observe.
Oh man.
Count me out of that. But Doc, while we're talking about killers that people hate.
Oh yeah. The DC King.
Yeah. This build again, I don't think we'll see a lot of change. This kind of the DMS pain res, you know, distressing, constantly blasting people off generators, this kind of discount impossible skill check. Yes, pain res is being nerfed so that people don't scream anymore. Doc doesn't give a shit. He'll still make you scream, he'll still push you off that gen with DMS, and it'll lock out that gen. And then you'll get it to 90 and you're like, I'm so close, I'm almost done. And then Merciless Storm kicks in and you miss one skill check because of madness and now it's blocked again. Like, this is just awful.
Yeah.
And then on the rare occasions where Doc will kick a gen, take that 2.5%, and you'll come back to it, and you miss one skill check because it's backwards, and now Doc knows to turn around and come right back again. This, not accounting for add-ons, just talking about perks, this build doesn't change a lot, but it changes the way that you use it. Because now you're not using Pain Resonance to give you your DMS, you're using Pain Resonance to knock those gens down to keep them from getting to Merciless Storm range. And then when Merciless Storm hits, you have to keep a closer eye on the gen.
Yeah,
but I don't think this is really any different.
Yeah, I know when I spawn into a match and the second I hear that terror radius, I'm just like, oh no. I hate going against doctors, and it's funny. I like playing Doctor. He was one of the first killers I ever played, and I always play him when it comes time to farming for blood points because man, it's so easy to hit some of his categories with his ability. So. Yeah. I agree. I don't see a big change coming to Doctor. I mean, the fact is, they're not nerfing Deadman Switch. Honestly, thank God. Because Deadman Switch by itself is not a strong perk.
Yeah.
I'm glad the devs realized that it wasn't Deadman Switch, it was Pain Resonance, and the cohesion that it had with Deadman Switch, which they removed that cohesion, so now the two perks are separate. And they can't complement each other like they used to, which means Deadman Switch can still be used on other killers where it's not as oppressive as it was before. But the thing is just like Starstruck on Nurse is a staple, I think Deadman Switch is going to be a staple for Doctor moving forward into the future. The fact is all he has to do is walk to the center of the map, do his big shock with Distressing to increase that range, and anybody who's on a gen, you're blocked off of it by Deadman Switch. So I think Deadman Switch gives Doctor the one thing that he probably didn't really need, which was a natural way of slowdown. So I think this build in itself is going to be super strong. Doctors don't really need to kick gens. They don't really need to break gens. I mean, you could do Impossible Skill Checks Doctor, and the new Impossible Skill Check Doctor build is insane. But I think, if you're not going for the Mimi Doctor build and you're going for the I want as much time to secure as many kills as possible, like this build is going to be pretty strong. And
yeah, the snapping out of it with the madness too. Don't forget about that. That adds some extra time. Yeah,
it's definitely it's one of those things where, the more mad he makes you, the harder the entire game is. Because even in Madness Stage 2, like, you're getting reverse skill checks, you're getting all that, and if you're not really paying attention, you're gonna miss them, and it gives them information. So I think this really just kind of focuses on his strengths and just makes it like insanely more powerful.
Makes him worse than he already is.
Yeah. Yeah, Goofy says Dead Man's Pain. It sounds brutal. It's definitely going to be a very, very brutal build, and hopefully we don't come across it too often.
I hope not. I would like Doc to fade into obscurity, if at all possible.
All right, and then with that being said, guys, we're rolling into everybody's favorite killer to go against. The good old Bubba, also known as the Cannibal, also known as Leatherface. So, big thing about Bubba, guys, Corrupt Intervention is basically useless on him. I mean, he's an insta-down killer for a reason, and Corrupt Intervention, it's just a waste of a perk that you could be using somewhere else. There's a lot of different ways that we talked about. We could have taken this approach with Bubba. This is probably what we think is going to be the newest meta / interesting build for Bubba. Starting with Lethal Pursuer. Every Bubba wants to get that down as fast as possible, and most Bubbas are basement Bubbas or face camping Bubbas or things like that, right? So Lethal Pursuer is just like Hillbilly. It's going to allow him to find who he needs to very quickly, get that first down. Agitation's going to help him carry them where he needs to, which, let's be honest, is most likely the basement. He wants to keep them right next to his chest. And what we think about here is they buffed Monstrous Shrine. Of all perks, the one perk that has been the staple of memes and jokes and probably the most unused perk ever is Monstrous Shrine. But the changes that are coming to Monstrous Shrine is basically like it's now a Scourge Hook, which I think is super cool that they took an old perk and made it into a Scourge Hook. I think that's awesome. But it turns every basement hook into a Scourge Hook. And the secondary effects is that anybody who's on that Scourge Hook, just like Monstrous Shrine used to do, will kill them a lot faster. Now, that doesn't just apply to basement. That applies to if you hook somebody outside on a Scourge Hook as well. You know, you just have to be away from the hook within 24 meters. So what we think is going to happen is these Bubbas are going to learn. They're going to start... They're still going to be basement Bubbas because now they kill people faster, which means the tactic of pump out generators isn't going to work anymore, especially since generators take longer. So they're going to take these guys, put them in the basements. They're going to stand exactly where they need to, 24 meters away. Make sure they die quickly. And if they see anybody going for the save, they're just going to mow them down. I would wager that this build right here is going to be worse than the Corrupt, Deadlock, Deadman Switch, Bubba combo that Spook and Jukes made a video about a while ago. I think this one's going to be worse than that.
Yeah, I think this will be the... like you said, they'll go to 24.1 meters,
just enough,
and they'll just sit there and they'll wait. And the problem I think with this build, well, the problem for survivors, I will say, every basement hook becomes a Scourge Hook, which means every basement hook has pain resonance. Which means anybody that goes for a basement save against a Bubba, you cut them off, you mow them down. You take out the person they unhooked, and you take out the person that unhooked, and you get 2 pain resonances at once. And now you have 2 people in the basement.
Yep.
So, you're just cranking out gen pressure, and still really doing what Bubba does right now, which is just face camp. You're proxying instead of face camping.
Just stay in the basement. You know, natural gen regression while standing in the basement.
Yeah, you don't really have to go anywhere. You know, your Lethal Pursuer finds your first victim. Agitation helps you get them to the basement faster. And then you blow up a generator and they die faster. And you watch and wait for them to die, just like Bubba's do right now. And then if somebody goes down there to try to save them, you interrupt them and you get more gen pressure. And... again, I think with this DS change, where as soon as the gates are powered, DS is no longer active, you can't do an endgame save against Bubba anymore.
Yeah, and Bubba eats through any endurance effect, so even like base kit borrowed time, off the record, like, it doesn't matter. He literally will eat through it and mow you down again.
Yeah, so this is a build that is good all the time because of the changes to his perks as well as the changes to the survivor perks. So this is a build that has no end game, but is end game because of Bubba.
Yeah, and you know, and we're talking a lot about like the basement dwelling Bubbas, the face camping Bubbas, but like let's say you're not one of those. Like let's say you're a Bubba that actually does chase and go from hook to hook and plays, you know, normally, right? This is still a monstrous build. I mean, yeah. it's like Raz said earlier, you take that survivor down to the basement, you leave, somebody goes saves them, you found someone else, you carry them to the basement, or you carry them to a Scourge Hook, and you just rinse and repeat. But like your main goal would be always getting people into that basement. And because you have Monstrous Shrine, it's going to force survivors to stop what they're doing to go save earlier. So it's, you know, it's gonna be an interesting build. I can't wait to try it out, but I definitely think this one's gonna be a pretty good one for really any type of Bubba player, whether that's good news or bad news for us when we play Survivor. I think it's gonna be good.
Yeah, I like the combination of survivors die faster and gens take longer, so Bubba becomes even more of a menace.
I'm looking forward to that so much. All
And moving
right.
forward from Bubba, unfortunately, a killer who is well beyond his prime,
Poor guy.
Freddy.
My first main, fun fact.
Yeah, I played Freddy for a long time as well. The this build again kind of stems from the M1 killer who can't really make use of corrupt intervention. This kind of discount corrupt through thrilling tremors, this endgame stop with no way out, this gen pressure with overcharge, this gen pressure with jolt. This build that kind of it accentuates what little Freddy has left. What
Yeah.
little he still has going for him. Um, so when you're in chase, when you M1 and you down somebody, you get that jolt value. You pick them up. Thrilling Tremors tells you everything you need. You take that survivor to a hook. You get your no way out stack. You teleport. Kick the generator 2.5% off the top. Start that overcharge regression, ramping from 100 to 400 over the course of 30 seconds. And then immediately find yourself in another chase because you know with Thrilling Tremors there was a survivor working on the gen, so when you teleport to it they couldn't have gotten very far. So this build accentuates the fact that Freddy still has a teleport that is still good, but doesn't rely on the snares, which now are really kind of useless. You might as well just not have that power. You might as well just be a teleporting killer.
Yeah, I used to main Freddy when I first started playing Dead by Daylight. I'm a huge Nightmare on Elm Street fan. I grew up with it. My mom loved it. And it's kind of what introduced me into the horror genre. So when I first started playing, I was all about Freddy. I started playing about 3 years ago. That was after Put You to Sleep Freddy. So I was playing with the second generation of Freddy, which was probably his strongest at that
Sure.
moment, because now we're in the third gen, and he was a force to be reckoned with. His add-ons were great. He slowed the game down. If you got people in the dream state, he just had a natural slowdown that was just even worse when you threw on Ruin and other things like that. Sadly, though, I don't remember which patch it was, but they nerfed him. They completely changed his add-ons into, to be honest, they're useless now. Like increased noise for survivor movement and stuff like that. Like, man, I got headsets for that. Like,
Yeah, who cares?
I don't care if you increase their groans by 50%. I'm gonna hear them whether it's increased by 50% or it wasn't even, or if it was base kit. Like, I'm gonna hear them. So until they readdress his add-ons, Freddy is gonna be lower tier. Like, he's really not that great. The only thing he has going for him is his teleports, and his teleports are so limited. He can't teleport to a gen that's blocked. Once the game is over, unlike Sadako and Dredge, he can't teleport anymore. All he can do is walk. He's an M1 killer. So coming up with a build for him for this go round was kind of difficult. Because the old Freddy, I mean, you'd run Tinkerer, you'd run Corrupt, you'd run anything that could give you some ideas of what you could do with generators. Because you got to be gen focused as Freddy. You teleport to him. So, Thrilling Tremors was actually one of my old perks. I used to always run on Freddy when I mained him. So we kind of talked about it, and I think Thrilling Tremors is probably one of the most powerful perks that Freddy can have in his arsenal, because it's just constant information on where survivors are. You know what generator to go to, you teleport to it, you hit it with overcharge, you knock down that survivor, Jolt's going to give you value. So I think the best avenue for Freddy is that access of teleporting to a gen, getting into a chase quickly, and knock them out and get them hooked and just keep going. Gen to gen to gen, chase to chase to chase. And sadly, I think there's not a lot of flexibility with Freddy when it comes to perks, in my opinion.
I agree. He's built into one avenue, and they're killing that one avenue with 6.1.
Goofy Grave said, "My no headphone using self is interested." Talking about the add-ons where it's like 50% increased.
Yeah, he's got one that 50% louder grunts of pain only while they're in the dream world.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you can hear gens being worked on from 8 meters away. He's kind of got surveillance and an add-on.
And it's like, what's that matter? Like, I can just
Who cares?
teleport. I can teleport to him, man. Like, I will always be salty about the Freddy add-on nerfs. Like, because his old ones, like, were they strong? Was Freddy strong? Like, Freddy was high A tier, but he wasn't, like, unbeatable. He wasn't insane. Like, it wasn't like going against a nurse or going against a Legion who slows the game down like crazy now, which is great. You know, Legion's finally in a good spot. But I don't know. I felt like, just like my boy Deathslinger got nerfed, I feel like, Freddy's nerf was kind of a little too much. So
they hit Freddy too hard, too fast.
Yeah. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But I'll definitely be testing this build out because I do enjoy me some Fred word every now and then. But with that being said, guys, moving into the next killer, everybody's favorite one to boop, Little Miss Old Piggy. So when it comes down to Pig, we actually talked a lot about some different avenues because Pig's one of those interesting killers where there's kind of a few different ways to play her. Some people really focus on the traps aspects. Some people just focus on the chase. The best way to use Pig is to use your traps sparingly. You don't, I always tell people the first thing you want to do, the first person you down, you always put a trap on them. Always. Go ahead and get that early pressure going. Get that person with a trap on. The second person you down, depending on what generators are left, like if they haven't finished a generator, then you don't put the second one on. We'll talk tactics later, right? Like there's a certain method towards Pig that can get you the most value out of your traps. But when it comes to her build, what's the best, really like avenue for her to take? And we kind of look at it as a mixture of mid, late, and end game. Pig doesn't really have much of an early game unless you bring videotape. But if you don't bring videotape, it's really about just building up as much pressure as possible. So obviously getting your stacks for No Way Out for the end game is crucially important. Deadlock is going to give you that natural slowdown that we've been talking about on multiple killers today. And just like every other M1 killer, Piggy is a M1 killer. And Jolt is the key for M1s right now. So I think using Jolt is going to be a really good combination for her, especially with her own perk surveillance. This way you can just focus on the chase. You're not focused on kicking generators. You're not really focused on dealing with generators. You're downing people. Generators are regressing. You look around the map and suddenly a generator's turned yellow and you're like, oh, somebody's on my gen. And then you can go right back to doing what you've been doing. I think this build really focuses on her stealth and her hit and run, sneak up on a person on a gen type tactics. And it's really more chase focused, which I think is going to be pretty strong on Piggy.
Yeah, I think the main thing here, obviously, if you use her ambush dash attack, you don't get jolt value, right? But generally, that's not the strat anyway. You don't do the second hit with the dash attack. You do the first hit with the dash attack to catch them off guard, and then you move into the M1 for the down. The No Way Out forcing people to stay locked in the game means that if somebody has a hat at the end of the game, now the other survivors can't leave. They can't just run out and be like, oh, don't worry, you can take the hatch. Even though your hat's active, we'll just get you the hatch. It's no big deal. Not with No Way Out. With Deadlock, you're getting that, you're buying more time. Again, you're turning a 90-second generator into a 2-minute generator 4 times. So it's better than Corrupt. You've got surveillance to give you information. And also really to tell you where to go. The 32 meters blowing up gens with Jolt, and then, oh hey, that gen's changed color, somebody's over there. And then you rinse and repeat. You go back into your crouch, you make your way over there, you get that dash attack for the first hit, You M1 for the second, and you blow the generator up again. The old days of running Ruin Undying on Piggy to force people to spend 1,000 years on side objectives while getting hats off, unfortunately have passed.
Yep.
So this iteration of Piggy is going to be game slowdown as opposed to gen slowdown, if that makes any sense to anybody other than my weird ass brain.
No, that makes sense. Not so much focused on, gens being regressed by ruin, things like that, but actually using the game itself and slowing down the game through all the different assets, not just gens. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and like you had talked about, the strategy is not get everybody down, put 4 hats out, and then wait. You don't want that second hat out if a gen's not done yet, because you want everybody to be pushed by their timer. You want them to be worried about their head exploding. And if you've got 4 hats out and you're at 5 gens, there's no pressure. They don't have to worry about anything. They can take as long as they need to get their hat off. They can search all 4 of those boxes until they get their guaranteed hat. So this will be a change to the strategy, but I think a change for the better. And this, along with the removal of the AFK Piggy, she'll be more engaging to deal with, I think, as opposed to how she was before.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be a stronger build. I feel like it highlights a lot of her aspects that we haven't seen in a long time.
I agree.
So, I think it's a good one. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited for what the future holds for dear Amanda here, and moving into the next killer, into our good old buddy Clown.
Oh yeah, good old Clown.
I don't think much has changed here, honestly. This is kind of a build that you would see right now anyway. Or something similar to this. Maybe not this exactly, but Devour is already a pretty popular pick on Clown. Jolt, already a pretty popular pick. The addition of Thrilling and No Way Out is again just kind of baking in that slowdown, baking in that information, making people stay longer. If all 5 gens get done, but you have your Devour tokens, oh boy, they got a whole extra minute to contend with you.
I think people just want to see Clown cutting off fingers. That's all it is.
That too. But I think, turning a killer who really... Clown brings a 1v1 to the table. He doesn't bring a 1v4 to the table. He has nothing going for him map-wide. Bringing something like Devour, that 1v1 becomes so much more lethal and so much faster, and you're stacking that on with getting the additional value of Jolt not having a cooldown. If you have to slug it out and just keep knocking people to the floor to keep blowing up generators, you could do that all goddamn game if you really wanted to. And Thrilling, again, when you pick up and carry somebody to a hook, you get information to know where to go next. And with Clown, that gives you the option of throwing somebody on a hook, and if you're close enough, throwing a bottle at the generator. And now you've got the information you need. Did somebody scream? They're still on it. Did they not scream? They went somewhere. Look for scratch marks. This information that you've already got on a killer that is good at corralling people and is good at pushing them to where he wants them to be and is good at getting people off of objectives, now has information to allow him to do that better and to give himself more time in a situation where a good group of survivors is generally not threatened by a Clown. But with Devour, No Way Out, with the gen regression from Jolt consistently, with Thrilling Tremors making these 90-second generators take even longer, this is a build that allows Clown to go from a decent, kind of okay-ish killer at the start to an absolute menace through the mid-game into the late.
And it's coming from me with somebody who doesn't really play Clown that much, and gone against Clowns quite a few times. I do know a Clown main, actually. Giggle Hammer's a pretty mean Clown main, if you remember Giggle. So,
oh yeah.
It is kind of interesting seeing this build. Clown, I've always kind of joked about how Clown's kind of just really weak. He's just not a very strong killer. I mean, everybody knows he's not super high tier, but the thing is a lot of people just don't really know how to use his power. If you know how to use both his bottles which I don't, but if you do, then you can actually be a very effective M1 killer as Clown. Clown's fast, right? Like, he's 115 like the other killers, but something about him, he just seems so much faster. Probably because he's just a big guy, right? But
And he can make himself faster. That's the whole point of the yellow
yeah,
bottle.
yeah,
That's bloodless too.
yeah. When you get that yellow bottle going, good luck. But I think this build's pretty good for him, honestly. The Devourer Hope, it's one of those things where you bring it, you're either going to get value or you don't. And when you do get value, it's game. It's normally game over. So it's one of those kind of like 50-50 perks, but the payout for bringing it is definitely worth it. And for a killer like Clown who already kind of struggles throughout the game, like, you might as well as roll your dice. Because, if you get that value from it, whether that's a 1 down and somebody breaks it, that's 1 less down that you had to really worry about later. I think the Thrilling Tremors and No Way Out combo is really good. You're just giving him information. He's setting up for the end game to buy himself more time. And Jolt, we've talked about numerous times. So as someone with not a lot of experience with Clown and just kind of judging it based off the clowns I have seen and the clowns I have gone against, I think this is a pretty good basic build. I don't think he needs a bunch of gen regression like I would probably run because I don't know how to play Clown, so I'd rely on my gen regression. But if we're talking like actual Clown players who know what they're doing, this gen's gonna be more like this build's gonna be more than enough.
I agree.
So, with that being said about Clown, then we get to move into everybody's favorite S tier killer who recently got a nerf. If you call it that. I don't really think it's that big of a deal. She's still pretty strong. But
She got an adjustment.
yeah, like they just kind of tweaked her a little bit.
Yeah.
But talking about Spirit, guys. So, Spirit is definitely still a very strong killer. They changed her phasing to where now as a survivor you can hear where she's coming from. It's directional. The sound is directional from left, right, up, down, north, south, east, west, all that, right? So there's a lot of potential here when it comes to Spirit. Corrupt Intervention is out. It's no longer going to be a really good perk for Spirit because Spirit's going to be very good at downing somebody very quickly. I know a lot of people like to bring different types of perks with her. Sometimes Strider is a very popular perk on Spirit, but PC players that have like Nahemic and different types of audio capabilities in their headsets don't really need Strider because they have the third-party assets of being able to boost up their volume and hearing. But when you look at what build can really help build her up, I think we talked about it for a bit, but we got a mixture of a little bit of everything here. So we have Discordance because information is everything in this game. And Spirit doesn't have a lot of natural information herself, but if she can get the information, she's very quick to respond to it. So Discordance, anytime 2 survivors get on a generator, Spirit's going to be notified. Guaranteed, you could argue that, what if survivors don't double up on a gen? Then sure, you don't get any value from it. But with gens being 90 seconds now, I'm pretty sure, you're going to see survivors doubling up. And most of the time, survivors will always double up if they find another survivor on a gen. So you're going to get a lot of value out of Discordance knowing where to go. When you down that survivor, just like every other M1 killer, you get jolt value. Pop goes a weasel. Haven't seen it brought up yet, which is kind of impressive because if we were to have done this a few months ago, Pop would have been on almost every killer, kind of like Otsdarva's killer review, if you notice his.
Yeah.
But Pop on Spirit's an interesting choice. It's going to be a pretty strong regression perk for her. I mean, she can traverse the map so quickly. She has so much potential that adding an extra gen regression is not a bad idea for her. And then, of course, with her, giving her more time at the end game with No Way Out is just as scary as a Huntress having No Way Out or Blood Warden. I don't want to be in a match any longer with a Spirit if I've made it to the end. I just want out. So I think it's going to be a pretty interesting build to see on Spirit.
Yeah, I think the big thing here, right, is so we talked about this a little bit off stream. Spirit can't see auras while she's phasing. She doesn't have access to any aura reading at all. It just stops working when she phases.
Yep.
What she can see is generator auras, and she can see when generator auras go yellow from discordance. So she has that information at all times, including during her power. And the ability to go to a discordance generator means that she is more likely to find somebody that she can down with Jolt and get value. And if there's two people on a generator, chances are as soon as they realize that she's got Jolt, somebody's going to run behind her and tap that generator after Jolt goes off when she's busy picking up and carrying off to a hook. Now she can just turn around and go back to that generator and hit it with a pop on top of that. Free 2.5% of maximum from the base kick, 20% of current from the way that pop will work in 6.1, and she's taken a bunch of progress off that generator. She gets another discordance and she's gone.
Yep.
The scary thing for me about Spirit, and really it always has been ever since she came out, is the fact that you can feel so safe. She's on the other side of the map. I can see, the obsession claws moving. She's chasing them on the other side of the map. No big deal. 20 seconds later, she's on top of you. That's the scariest thing for me about Spirit, is just how quick she can get to where she wants to be. And we kind of talked about it, the overlap of Jolt and Pop, of not being able to get the value of, well, you blow up everything in 32 meters and it's regressing, so you can't hit it with a pop. Well, if you're Spirit and you run Mother-Daughter Ring and you're 200 and whatever percent, like 216 or something, I think, with Mother-Daughter Ring, then sure, you get the Jolt on the generators nearby, you hook somebody, you get your pop ready, and then you go to the other corner of the map and you blow up a generator over there with pop instead. This is a build that always has value. And no way out. If you're the poor last soul against a Spirit and she finds the hatch first, that's it. Game is over for you.
That's game. And one of the things we talked about too was Lethal Pursuer, Barbecue, Floods of Rage, kind of the things that you've seen so far on a few other killers we've talked about, like Billy, for example. And honestly, they sound like really good perks for Spirit because she has that mobility to get across the map. But the main reason that we didn't go with those perks, it's like Raz said, when she goes into phase, you lose that aura. So even if you have Lethal Pursuer and you have an extra 2 seconds from Floods of Rage and you're like, oh crap, there's my survivor, and you go to phase towards them, it's gone. So
you lose them.
Will they be decent perks on her? Sure. You could use them on her and then phase after the auras, but, ultimately you're not going to get as much value out of them as you are out of this build right here.
Yeah, I think this will be the main thing, but now we get to my favorite, the murderous band of angsty teenagers, which...
all 4 of them.
This build has changed a little bit, but is very similar to what the build is right now. Thana got a direct buff. It's now 10% stronger than it used to be. Awesome. Run Thana all the time. Everybody's injured. You're Legion. Great. Pain Resonance. 15% off of a generator. You're fast. You can run around and check your gens if you really need to, but that you don't care. You're just slowing the game down some more. You're just taking 15% off of a generator to make them have to be in the game even longer with you. Overcharge, very much the same. Just kick a generator, knock that thing back down to 0, force them to work through Thana while they're all injured, and take 22% longer with the buff. So now this 90-second generator becomes 110 seconds, which is almost as good as Deadlock, and almost the same amount of time as Corrupt, but doesn't require anybody to be, not downed. And Jolt, again, Legion is an M1 killer. They M1 you to down you unless they get very lucky and they get their 5th hit, which, even as a seasoned Legion main, it does not happen for me very often. So most of your downs are going to come from M1s. You're going to get your Jolt value, and then you're going to hook them on a Scourge Hook, and you're going to get your pain res value, and then you're going to go to a different generator, and you're going to kick it, and you're going to get your overcharge value. Even without add-ons, this build just extends and accentuates what Legion already does. Legion makes games take forever. It's a war of attrition when you find a Legion. It is who can work the longest on the least amount of resources and still succeed.
That's actually a really good way to put it.
The whole thing against Legion, don't waste your pallets, because you've only got so many, and once they're gone, boy howdy, Legion's gonna make your life miserable. So, you know, don't waste your pallets, and keep your generators well spread. Make it as difficult as possible for a Legion to get those chain hits. Don't be those people who get hit and mend immediately. Don't do that anymore.
You know, I
that
love,
used to be the strat.
I love how Odds made a video about that too. He's like, the Legion is not OP. Don't go complaining. Just don't mend while he's in frenzy, and like made like a whole video about it.
Yeah, that's the thing, and people are still in this mindset from old Legion.
Yeah.
Where you get hit. Oh, no big deal. I just start mending immediately. Don't do it. The faster that you mend, the more likely they are to turn around and come back for you.
Yeah, that's a free hit getting to that 5th stack.
Yeah, if I only have to hit 3 people because the first person starts mending immediately, I'm going to remember that. I'm going to go, okay, this person that I hit at Shack, I saw them start mending, so I'm going to go get another couple of hits, and then I'm going to run back to Shack area to see if I pick up that Killer Instinct again, because now I can down them. So, yes, it takes a longer time, because now I can't mend while Legion is frenzying, and now I have to wait until the frenzy ends, and then I can mend, and then I get on a generator, and then it takes a long fucking time because of Thana, and then I have to deal with overcharge. The whole point is Legion wants to make you wait. If you have to run out of exhaustion perks, if you have to run out of pallets, if you have to run out of safe zones, that's what Legion wants. That is the perfect scenario. If you have a survivor that just, they hear terror radius and they get ready to throw a pallet. They camp on the pallet, they wait, and then they throw the pallet. Legion is more than happy to get stunned 1,000 times in a match, because you're not going to finish the gens anyway.
So, you know, now, since we actually have you here as a Legion main, the question I actually have for you, so we have this build below, which is Thana, Pain, Overcharge, Jolt, very kind of gen regression focused. Do you think this build right here would be better than like the classic Legion slowdown of like Thana, Dying Light, Colophobia, like those type of like healing min slowdowns, etc.?
So Dying Light, I think, is a good perk on Legion for the added slowdown, but I hate perks that give survivors a bonus, right? Dying Light conceptually was better when it was old Dying Light. But the new Dying Light fits better with Mikey's whole thing. Yeah. The old Dying Light was when your obsession died, everybody else got these massive penalties. But it didn't work because you needed the obsession alive to get save the best for last stacks and to get play with your food, and so it just didn't mesh. So it was a really weird perk for Mikey, so they changed it to what it is now, and I think it's good, don't get me wrong, but if I get 6 or 7 or 8 stacks, and then I kill the obsession and I lose all that benefit, all that work that I had, all those things that I'd done, and all those other people that I'd gone around and hooked, I have given a benefit to the survivors for the whole game up to that point, and then I have removed my benefit that I was getting. These perks are all the time. I always have these. Thana always works because I'm Legion and I chew through health states. Pain Resonance always works because I'm going to be hooking survivors and I will eventually get one of them on a Scourge Hook. Overcharge always works because I should be running around and checking my generators. Jolt works because I am going to be M1ing people to down them because you can't consistently 5th hit down. So Dying Light works better from a more, I will say, more conservative standpoint. if you're more worried about the early game and you don't play for mid or late, Dying Light is better, for sure.
Okay.
But if you want a consistent pressure all game long, something like this is going to be your go-to. It starts out weak because you need to get your Thana stacks, but once you get your Thana stacks, they're a joke to maintain as Legion. It's like Plague, right? It's just they're always going to be hurt.
Yeah, I was always been curious because most legions try to run a lot of perks that slow down like the healing aspect and things like that. So when I saw you, because we didn't really talk about this one that much, but when I saw you come out with a full Jin build for Legion, I was actually kind of like, okay, all right, something different you don't see from most Legion players. So I think this build's actually a really good choice, honestly. And
Yeah,
so
I don't understand the anti-healing on Legion because good survivors will not heal. They will know that it is a waste of their time.
that's what I do. I just stay injured.
So yeah, no big deal. And we talked about this last week and I think the week before as well. Good survivors, high tier survivors, are totally cool with staying hurt. Does not matter.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, like so much time is spent healing, and like one of the number one advice I always give when people ask about survivor playing is you get used to playing injured. Get
Yeah.
okay with it, because the more you're okay with playing injured, the more you're better at looping. That's time that you're not wasting trying to heal, and that's one of Legion's big things is he wants you to heal. So
Yep. If you mend and heal, Legion has all the time in the world, and they will just immediately knock you back down to hurt anyway. So you might as well just stay hurt.
So definitely going to be an interesting Legion build. I'm sure we're going to see Raz doing it quite often on his stream. So be sure to check that out when he does go live and play some Legion after the PTB goes live to the servers. But moving on to our next killer, we have the Plague. And as much as I absolutely hate going against the Plague with a passion, I just don't like Plague. I don't like playing against Plague. I don't like playing Plague. Sorry to all the Plague mains. It's just boring to me. But again, Corrupt Intervention is one of those perks that benefits killers like Plague. The most Plague mains that I know and that I've seen play in comp and normal DBD pubs, things like that, they're all very territorial. They're very focused on sectioning off a map, holding down a 3-gen, things like that. You start off the game and you want to get as many generators infected as you can within the period of time before survivors start working on them. Because if a survivor gets sick and you didn't do it, they touched one of your gens. So Corrupt Intervention is going to give Plague that time to kind of set up where she wants to set up and start holding the fort and protecting her 3-gen. And that's kind of where the other two perks come in between Thana and Eruption. So healing and everything against Plague is completely useless. So Thana is a given perk for Plague. I mean, everyone's going to be sick. They're going to be injured. So if you have Thana going, then you're going to get natural regression. You're going to get some more pressure naturally. Eruption just allows you to mark any generator that you're kicking. And like we've talked about it before, when you down somebody, it explodes. If they're on it, they're incapacitated, buying you more time, leading all the way up to the end game of No Way Out. This build, I think, for the first killer in this list that we've talked about, it has a early game, a mid game, and a end game. It covers all three bases, and a good territorial Plague that holds their ground on their 3-gen. This is going to be disgusting to go against because she's already disgusting to go against. No pun intended, but it's there.
Yeah, I like this. I like this build because this is she doesn't lose value on Corrupt, right? She just gets people sick, she makes them broken, and if you can get everybody sick and get everybody broken and not down anybody, you're getting value out of Corrupt the whole time, and you're also building your Thana value, which, again, like we just talked about, has a 10% direct numbers buff. It is 10% better. So now Thana becomes even more oppressive, while these gens are also taking longer to finish. And then you've got Eruption, so as you run around and you're doing plague things and vomiting on things and being gross, you can kick your generators, and when you choose to engage and when you choose to down somebody, you blow up all these generators, you knock people off, they get incapacitated, they can't work on gens, they can't, cleanse totems or whatever else they may want to be doing while they're in the interim and they can't do gens. And then when all the gens are done, you still have No Way Out, which is one of, if not the best endgame perk. Because it locks survivors in for an entire minute on top of the 20 seconds to open. Watch yourself all kinds of time, even if you've had a bad game, even if you've been behind. No Way Out is the great equalizer in the end game.
Not to mention, Plague's just natural ability to down somebody quickly by infecting them and then just smacking them. Like, I've seen some nasty Plague end game plays where you're running for that door and she's right behind you, and like the next 5 seconds you're on the ground.
Yeah, the big thing, kind of getting into the mechanics of the game here a little bit, stalking killers cannot body block you. You can move through a stalking killer, they lose collision while they're stalking. Plague does not lose collision while she's vomiting. So if you lock yourself into a corner, she will get you fully infected all the way to broken, and then hit you in the face and you will go down. So don't ever put yourself in a situation where you don't have a way to turn against a Plague, or you've just handed her free pressure. And even at endgame, if she has her red puke, right, she eats through that endurance effect, and then she either vomits again because she still has her red puke, or she catches back up and smacks you, and you go right back down. And like we've said before, you don't have DS at endgame. So she becomes a killer that at endgame, 100% you will get tunneled. If she's had a bad game and she wants to secure one kill and you get unhooked, you will be the one. She will chase you down.
And not much you can do.
So this is a great build for all stages of the game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really good one. And I've been saying that a lot, but that's because we actually spent quite a bit of time choosing the best potential perks for these killers. And as much as I hate going against Plague, like, I really don't want to go against this build.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's a strong one. And I think it's good. I mean, we took a lot of time to put all these builds together, right? And this one, too, this next build that we're going into for Ghostface, fantastic. This is good. So Ghostface, he got his power update, he got his add-on pass, he was, adjusted and tweaked, and they played around with him a little bit, and they made him more of that creepy information gathering, stalking, mask behind the wall kind of killer. And this whole build accentuates that. This addition of Lethal Pursuer, most Ghostfaces, I should say all Ghostfaces, I've never seen a Ghostface not do this, will start the game and immediately go into Night Shroud. They will take their stealth and they will start hunting people. They will either look for somebody to mark and down, or they will look for people to 99 and they will jump between people in the early game. Lethal Pursuer gives you a huge bonus to that, because generally survivors will spawn together. They will be a group of 4, or it will be a group of 3 and 1, or it will be 2 sets of 2. It's very rare to go into a game where survivors are all separated. And Ghostface, unlike Myers, can stalk multiple people at a time and benefit from it. So if you can 99 multiple people at the start of the game, and then just, walk away, just be this creepy little ghost in the wind and leave, and then go find other people, mark them, down them with your jolt, because again, we're M1 killers. We're starting to sound like a broken record here, but yeah. Jolt is just so goddamn good with no cooldown. And
It's the new number one Jin meta perk.
yeah, it's
Calling it right now. It is.
it's too good to pass up. Every killer at some point has to M1, with very few exceptions. But it's especially powerful on your killers who are forced to M1 because their powers do not have lethality. So, run around early game, 99 people, mark people, knock them down, get jolt value, and then put them on a Scourge Hook. Get your pain resonance value, but also prep your Floods of Rage. So let's say you have the outdoor security camera, one of Ghostface's iridescent add-ons. You knock somebody down for any reason, and you see everybody else for, I believe it's 4 seconds. Well, now Lethal Pursuer gives you an extra 2, so that outdoor security camera becomes 6 seconds. And then you pick this survivor up, and you put him on a Scourge Hook, and you go chase one of your outdoor security camera survivors that you saw. You run off and go bother them for a little bit. Well, now somebody goes and gets the save, Floods of Rage goes off, and Lethal Pursuer adds 2 seconds, and you have an idea of where everyone is. So now this other survivor that you've gone and bothered and you've knocked them down, now outdoor security camera gives you value again. This is a build that has no indication that Ghostface is seeing you basically the entire game. This is a build where, unless you live in a locker, he will know where you are.
So don't worry, Dwight Mains, you're good.
Yeah, you guys will be alright. Everybody else, you're going to be in trouble. And this is a great build for a killer that thrives off information more than just killer in general needing information.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like a Scratch Mirror Myers in a way. Like, imagine Ghostface as Scratched Mirror Myers and just non-stop being able to see people and continue going through. And, like, in my head, I'm imagining him on Larry's for some reason. But, like, just imagine the potential between Lethal Pursuer, and even if you take away his add-on that lets him see all auras, like, Floods of Rage, like, is still a very, very strong aura reading perk to where mid-chase and etc. that he's going to be able to see and keep stalking and keep going. And what a lot of people don't know about Floods of Rage is there's not really, like, a range that I'm aware of, but I know, like, the few times I've used it, I've been in chase with someone gets unhooked, and the person I'm chasing, I see their aura.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge mind game. If you're running around Larry's and somebody unhooks them and he can see you through the wall, then, he just got free aura reading and now he has his next down. Like, I think Ghostface benefiting from information alone, it's going to be a very, very good build for him. And I'm actually, like, kind of excited for it because an all-seeing Ghostface build's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, and I think this is, kind of going back to what you were saying with the whole being able to mind game by seeing survivor auras with Floods of Rage. This is a killer who can lose his terror radius and his red stain at will. He can just decide, I don't want the survivor to know where I'm looking. So if Floods of Rage goes off while you're in chase, and this survivor is just absolutely juice, and you just have not been able to catch this guy because he's always reading you, drop your red stain. Go into Night Shroud. You'll still see him. You don't lose the aura reading. You're not like Spirit going into phase. Just turn your red stain off. And now it becomes even harder for that survivor to continue doing what they've been doing, to continue looping you for as long as they have been. Or go into Night Shroud and drop the chase entirely. Go look for somebody else because you can see everybody on the map. Because Floods of Rage is every survivor except the unhooked. So you can see everybody.
Yep.
Just go find that other survivor. Go bother them instead.
Like, Floods of Rage is the new barbecue, and it's a lot better in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah, there's no range limit, there's no range requirement, and it's everybody every time somebody gets unhooked from a Scourge Hook. This is a disgusting Ghostface build, and I really hope this means that we'll see more Ghostface.
I agree. To our next killer, we have the fan favorite Demo Dog, which we might have to do a podcast talking about the Stranger Things rumors going on. But, there is potential that the good old Demo puppy might be coming back to Dead by Daylight. For all the new players out there that didn't get the chance to buy them, this might be your opportunity come Christmas time, but we'll save that for another podcast. So basically, guys, talking about Demo and the upcoming updates, what are the best perks that are going to be run on him? This is one of those weird killers where there's so many different things you can do because there's so many different play styles for Demo. I know personally when I play Demo, ironically, because I'm not good with setup killers, I play more of a setup Demo. I set up my portals around 3 gens. I try and hide them so they're not as visible to survivors. I try to get them close enough so I can get a bunch of value whenever I want to see if somebody's near. So there's a lot of different things that you could be doing. And then some people just play a chase Demo. They don't use the portals as much. They just focus on chase. So I think what we've come up with here is kind of a nice balance between both of those type of players. The ones that want to use their portals and the ones that want to just commit to chases and just focus on being more chase. So basically we'll go ahead and break it down, right? Lethal Pursuer is going to be a staple in the new meta. I think it's a lot of people didn't run it before because why would you? You got 7 seconds at the beginning of the game and that's it. Your perk's dead. You brought an entire perk slot for 7 seconds of the game. Good job, right? That was kind of the mentality. But now that it adds extra aura reading benefits, people are going to be pairing it up with Barbecue. People are going to pair it up with Floods of Rage. And you guys might be looking at this build and you're like, well, Osu, y'all didn't pick Barbecue or Floods of Rage for Demo. But that's because Lethal Pursuer also benefits add-ons. And Demo has an add-on to where every time he traverses the upside down, he can see all the auras of survivors. And normally by the time you emerge, it's already gone. But with Lethal Pursuer, you're going to have it a lot longer. It's going to give you more time, going to give you more value. So you're bringing a perk that actually boosts some of your add-ons. So it's a really strong early game perk and technically really strong in helping you out throughout the rest of the game if you bring that add-on. One of the other perks that we know is not going to change is Save the Best for Last. Save the Best for Last is just like it is on Deathslinger. It is a huge fan favorite for Demogorgon. Demo is one of the only killers that can actually save his stacks as he goes through Save the Best for Last because of his secondary ability with his lunge. So obviously if you're that chase-oriented type killer, Save the Best for Last is going to be kind of your go-to main perk there. And then lastly, we have Call of Brine and Fearmonger together. Now, Call of Brine, we brought that in because if you are playing that territorial Demo, you're going to be putting portals near generators. You want to keep generators like regressing and weak and slow. So Call of Brine is going to give you a bunch of regression at your initial kick. But the other benefit is it also has information. So if somebody comes back, they hit that skill check, you get a notification. You portal yourself right back over there. They start to run away, but their sprint burst isn't working because you have Fearmonger. Their Dead Heart isn't working because you have Fearmonger. Their Iron Will's not working because they're exhausted. They can't hide. Their Houdini build's ruined. Like, there's so many great opportunities with Call of Brine and Fearmonger combined. So this kind of captures a lot of different aspects of Demo. And it was hard to choose the perks for him, but I think this is a pretty good setup for him.
Yeah, he was a tough killer to create a build for that was like a catch-all, you can run this regardless of how much you play Demogorgon and do well kind of build. But this, I mean, obviously keeping Save the Best for Last, like you said, as one of the only killers that doesn't have to lose stacks if he doesn't want to, Save the Best for Last is a great choice. Fearmonger, I think overall is not really being given the attention that it should be. The exhaustion now making Iron Will completely turn off is big. Exhaustion in general is a great status effect that killers can only inflict on survivors in a small handful of ways. And with the Dead Hard change and us moving away from Dead Hard, because I don't think very many people are going to continue to run it after 6.1, we're going to come back to Sprint Burst. We're going to come back to Lithe. We might even see, like, Smash Hit and Overcome, come out of the woodwork for once. And all of those perks are shut down because they have Fearmonger. And if they hear your terror radius, they have to walk immediately to try to get their exhaustion back. Lethal Pursuer gets you in chase very, very early, very quick. Build that pressure as quickly as you can. And we kind of talked about it off stream. For most killers, you either run Corrupt or Lethal with the way that 6.1 is looking like it's shaping up. You will either push people towards you and lock out those 3 generators if you're a setup killer, or you will run Lethal because you want to engage in chase as quickly as possible, and you have other aura reading that benefits from it as well. So this addition of Lethal is more for that aura reading side of things from add-ons. It's not as much for the build itself, but it still gives you value early to get you in chase, to build those stacks up, and it gives you value if you run those add-ons to see those auras for a little bit longer and keep gathering information. And then Call of Brine as a fantastic choice moving forward. Whether you take Call of Brine or Overcharge, both are good choices here for some kind of regression. And that was really the only thing that this build was lacking. It had early game, it had chase, but it didn't really have anything to slow survivors down, so I think Call of Brine was a good pick here for a little bit more info and some gen regression to slow that game down, to keep you in the game despite how well or how poorly you may be doing.
It's a good balance between, information, regression, and however you want to play your demo. So
yeah.
And the funny thing is too, like Lethal Pursuer, right? Like we're talking about Lethal Pursuer a lot, and as somebody who doesn't normally run Lethal Pursuer, I keep forgetting that Lethal Pursuer got a buff, it got updated, and it like works with other aura add-ons. So if you're sitting here wondering like why we're talking about Lethal Pursuer being like a new meta with Corrupt, or kind of taking Corrupt's place, is because of that buff. If Lethal Pursuer didn't boost other aura reading add-ons and perks, like it wouldn't even be a topic of conversation, because it would be the same perk that no one would ever run. But it's got a lot of potential, as you've seen over the countless killers we've talked about so far.
Yeah, and this next one is I think the most obscure build that we've got for Oni here. This build is kind of out there, but I think this is and I think this is the best option with the current state of our poor Bam Bam, and the way that he's just countered by survivors kind of existing now. So the whole build here, this Lethal Pursuer, Pentimento, Gift of Pain, and Shattered Hope. Lethal Pursuer, again, all aura reading effects are extended by 2 seconds, and you get the early game aura reading. Now the big thing for Oni, obviously getting into your first chase, getting your first hit, starting to fill the map with blood, getting your power as quickly as you can. Pentimento, I was a little hesitant to put on here, but I like having Pentimento with Shattered Hope. The reason being, boons are still powerful. Boons were not touched in 6.1. They haven't been adjusted. So they will still be run. Survivors will still come with their Circle of Healing. They'll still have their Shadow Steps. But now Oni has a way to not be directly countered by Circle of Healing anymore. And Shattered Hope is also aura reading. Any survivors who are within the radius of the boon totem, when you break the totem, because you're not snuffing with Shattered Hope, you're actually breaking, their auras are revealed to you. And with Lethal, they're revealed for longer. And then you can use Pentimento as your way to get your gen regression in there. And then obviously when you get people down, when you get Blood Fury ready, when you get all the blood that you need, and you get Gift of Pain, well, they've changed the numbers on Gift of Pain, so now against an Oni, you never want to be injured. Oni is the polar opposite of Legion. Take the time to heal, because it's very important that you not be hurt. But you take that time to heal, you heal through the Mangled status effect, which makes you take longer to heal, and now your numbers on Gift of Pain are higher. So a tier 3 Gift of Pain is a 16% penalty to your repairing, and I believe to healing as well. So you heal other people even slower, and you can't work on generators as quickly. And Pentimento gives you a 30% penalty, and Shattered Hope means that you run out of boon totems. So this build on Oni stops what stops Oni from being good. We've countered the counter, if you will. And I love the build.
And when you first threw this at me, I was kind of like, Shattered Hope on Oni, really now. So it's definitely kind of interesting that you threw that out there. And honestly, like hearing you explain this build, seeing this build, um, it's very, very, very interesting. And before I dive into my opinion of the build, I see we have a question. So,
Oh, hey, Dak. How's it
yeah,
going?
what's
Dude?
up, Dex? Nice to see you. So, do you think that Thana is going to end up being a commonly banned perk, or is there just going to be a lot more combo bans? I mean, if we're talking about competition DBD, which is what it sounds like, when it comes down to it, is Thana going to be a commonly banned perk? I think comp itself is going to have to completely reevaluate how they're structured. Comp for the longest time has been about trying to make the game as balanced as possible. They've been not nerfing, but banning certain perks that have become overpowered. The thing is, though, is like the reason this update is coming out is because the core game mechanics of the game were flawed, which made flawed perks. The fact that generators now last longer and things like this, I don't think Thana itself is going to be banned by comp or tournaments. I mean, it's kind of a broad area because different tournaments could have different rules, but I don't think Thana itself is going to be banned. I think they're going to follow more what DBE does, where DBE picks like certain combinations and bans the combos of those. Like you can't use Haunted Grounds and Undying together. You can't use No Way Out and No-Wed together. Like things like that, to where I could see them being like, hey, you know what? Like Thana and Gift of Pain, just that's too much. That's too much stacks. Like honestly though, I don't think Thana itself is so strong that tournaments will ban it, if that makes sense. Like I don't think it's that big of a deal when it comes down to it. But it also depends on the killer you're playing. So what do you think?
I mean, so Thana, all they did was they added a 0.5% to all three ranks. You know, so at rank 3, it is now 10% more than it used to be. Is that the end of the world? No. Is that powerful enough to be banned in tournaments? Not on everybody. Now, I will say they have to be very careful because let's say that you do ban Thana for competitive. What do Legion and Plague bring to the table for their teams, if not the slowdown from Thana being innate with part of their kit?
I mean, you also got to think Corrupt's gone now. Like, Corrupt was a staple in competitive DBD builds, and now you don't have Corrupt anymore. You'd be dumb to bring that into a comp match. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, so I think I can't see them finding Thana to be such a big problem that they ban it, you know, across the board.
Yeah.
But also, if you target the killers that use Thana particularly well, they lose a lot of what makes them competitive.
Yeah. And it depends on the tournament. Like every tournament has different rules, different things. Like I know there's been a few tournaments I've seen where they've actually like gone killer by killer and banned certain perks for that killer. Like, hey, you can't use Starstruck on Nurse, but you can use Starstruck on, I don't know, like Trapper or something. You know, like basically just going by like, hey, this one's a little too strong for this guy. You can't use like Deadman Switch on Doctor, not in comp, but Deadman Switch on Deathslinger, like sure. So it just kind of depends. But all in all, I don't think Thana's that big of a deal. And not to mention like a good comp team with really good communication that constantly is like healing themselves, like Thana's not going to slow them down.
Yeah.
But with this build right here, a few things I wanted to say about it. I love the fact that Shadowed Hope is being used. And especially like with Pentimento, because the thing is boon totems completely counter Oni. You throw one boon circle of healing, Oni's like GG's, mate. Like so it's nice to be able to have him break a totem and then be like, hey, you know what? Let me throw Pentimento out there too. You tried to punish me, now I'm punishing you. It's really interesting. But like Scourge Hook, Gift of Pain, this is what that's what Blood Echo should have been, in all honesty.
I agree.
Like Blood Echo is in concept a really good perk, and it's supposed to really benefit Oni, but you only get value if people are already injured, which is kind of like, he's not Legion. He's not keeping everybody injured. That's why Blood Echo's really good on Legion, but not so much on Oni. Like, Scourge Hook Gift of Pain is what Blood Echo should have been. So the fact that you, like, have Gift of Pain on here, slowing down healing, keeping people injured, like, I think this is the perfect comeback build for Oni. So it's definitely going to be... I can't wait to see you playing this on stream. I can't wait to see it in action. I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, I'm excited for this. I spent a lot of time looking at Oni and going, okay, how can we make my poor boy feel better in games after these boon totems? Yeah, and Shattered Hope, I think, is a great answer. I will say that I personally still wish that Shattered Hope was base kit. Not the aura reading, but just the breaking boons when you snuff them. I wish that was base kit. But putting that together with Lethal Pursuer and also giving yourself Pentimento because you have now broken a totem is great. And you've also got Gift of Pain so that, God forbid they don't have any boon totems. You can still get some kind of slowdown and, run this with a couple of strong add-ons. And this will be an Oni that can be the comeback king that Oni was before boon totems came out. This, 2 gens left, 1 gen left, 0 gens left killer who can turn a 4 out into a 4K because of 1 good Blood Fury.
Yeah. And even if they don't bring boons, you're always going to have that 1 totem goblin. There's always one. Always one. And that's all you need with this build. You just need 1 person to break the totem for Pentimento. And that's really all you need at all.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of that build.
So now we get into the one that I've been waiting for, and I'm sure some of my regulars here have been waiting for. Good old Deathslinger. Now, it may come to a surprise that I don't have Save the Best for Last on here. And so, and the funny thing is, being a Deathslinger main with over 3,000 hours, and just poured into him, being top 50 Deathslingers in the world, like all the accomplishments I've made with this killer. I thought it'd be super easy to figure out what perks would be used, because I was trying to think from the aspect of the general populace, like not me. Like what would I run is not what most of the general populace would run. And then I started thinking, and I was like, I had Save the Best for Last on there originally because it is a super popular perk for Deathslinger. And then I was like, you know what? Instead, I'm going to change it. And I'm going to talk about my build and probably what you're going to see me running in the future after the update, but why I think this build is honestly probably going to be either meta for Deathslinger or one of the strongest perks or perk builds out there for him. And if you've been watching me for a while and you've been a staple of my community in this stream, then you're definitely going to know this build because it's not that different than what I've been running. So for the longest time, guys, I've always ran Pop, Eruption, Jolt, and Oppression. That has been my 4 go-to builds. It's the first video I ever made a YouTube video on. This is kind of the same build, but with 2 changes. I basically took out Pop, and I took out Eruption. I mean, not Eruption, but Oppression, and replaced them with Overcharge and Call of Brine. So here is my thought process here. And unpopular opinion, Save the Best for Last. It's overrated. It's really not that great of a perk for Deathslinger. A lot of other Deathslinger mains will argue for it, that it helps you get a shot off faster because your cooldown's faster and you can reload, and if you have warding keys, like you're saving yourself so much time. Like honestly, like okay, it's a fun perk, don't get me wrong. I like to run it every now and then, but when I'm talking like what's the best combination we can do, what's Deathslinger's #1 weakness? And that's his gen pressure. Deathslinger's very good at ending chase quickly. He's very slow. He's one of the very few 110 killers, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure he's the only long-range 110 killer.
I mean, you got Huntress.
Yeah, so...
But not very many.
Yeah, so he's one of the few slowest killers out there. So when it comes to, like, big maps like Red Forest and things like that, like, it's a struggle. and he just can't maintain gen pressure like a lot of killers can. So, you know, this is why I came up with this build 3 years ago, and this is why I'm changing it up a little bit now with the new meta. So basically, if you've been around long enough, this is kind of how it works, right? The way I play Deathslinger, I'm not as focused on chases and being extremely territorial like most Deathslingers are. You will literally see me break a chase just to kick a generator. And then I'm going to come back into that chase because I can catch up. I know I can. I have 18 meters. I'm going to get you, right? So when you kick a generator, you get eruption. Every generator that you mark, and that's why you want to mark as many generators as possible with eruption. The other benefit too is, let's say a generator has progress. You kick it with eruption. You also got it with overcharge, and you got it with Call of Brine. That together, I mean, that's 500% regression right there. Even if it hits 0 and they start working on it again and you down another survivor, eruption is still going to explode because it's been marked by eruption. Eruption doesn't cancel when the gen hits 0. So you have a really good combination here with eruption, overcharge, Call of Brine. If they get on that gen, they miss that skill check of overcharge, you know they're on it. If they get on that gen and they hit the skill check, Call of Brine's going to tell you. So you know what gens are always being worked on. And just like Dex said in the chat, not having a cooldown on Jolt is just, you know, insane. So Deathslinger not having a cooldown on Jolt, just like every other M1 killer, it's going to be crazy how much value he can get. Now the thing is like Deathslinger technically is an M1 killer. He shoots his rifle with M2, but every hit, every down, every single thing he does is M1. That's why Save the Best for Last is so popular on Deathslinger. But when you're talking like builds that will carry him the most and really just kind of help him hold it down, I think this gen-focused build makes up for his huge gap in natural gen regression and gen pressure, to where if you find that 3 gen and you hold it down, it's going to be real hard for survivors to do anything. That's kind of my take on it.
This is nasty, man. I really like this because you kick a generator and you get 3 perks for the price of 1. You know what I mean? You get marked with eruption, you get overcharge ramping regression speed, you get Call of Brine immediate regression speed, and you get the information of Call of Brine. And then you can just kind of not worry about it again, because if the gen goes back to 0, you still have eruption on it, and if it doesn't go back to 0, you'll get information from Call of Brine and you'll know. And if you take a chase nearby and you down somebody, then you have Jolt, and that just blows it up some more. I think this is a worthwhile trade for a killer like Deathslinger, who, sure, you don't have the information. I mean, we just talked about, you know, the whole it's corrupt or lethal for most killers now, you know. But Slinger doesn't really benefit from either of those. Corrupt, now that it goes down as soon as you down somebody, you're going to get in your first chase and lose it anyway. And lethal, you're not fast enough to really for it to matter. And we had lethal on Huntress because Huntress can legitimately cross map. Deathslinger cannot. So it was interesting to look at this killer from a standpoint of the rule that we've had for every other killer so far was broken. With Deathslinger, we didn't have a place for lethal, we didn't have a place for corrupt, but all of these gen perks, with most of them getting some kind of an update, this build became more of a menace than it once was. And a strong 3 or 4 gen, this build will not allow survivors to break easily unless you take a chase to the other side of the map, which why would you do that as a 110 killer? So
And if you guys did watch my, our stream the other day when I was playing PTB, I was basically playing this build. I'd already mixed up a few of my generator perks from back in the day, the ones I've been running since day 1 of playing Slinger, and this build was insane in the PTB. So if the perks stay how they are now when they go live, you guys are definitely going to see me playing this build a lot more, and it's I think it's going to be a lot of fun, at least for me.
The survivors may not have such a good time.
Probably not, especially since I like my 3 gens. So
yeah,
I just wanted to introduce a different concept for Deathslinger. a lot of other mains they'll throw on save the best for last, barbecue and chili, a few other ones. But I think this build right here, especially for my Deathslinger mains in the chat, if you're trying to do something new and you're trying to expand out, this might be the build to try out. Had a little bit of a Deathslinger mains touch here in today's podcast, so.
That's all right. They had to listen to me ramble about Legion, so.
hey, the mains gotta have their moment, right? All right, but I could talk about Deathslinger all day, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next guy.
The Executioner.
So, good old Pyramid Head.
This build, I am a big fan of this because this is everything that Executioner needs. And this covers really the small handful of weaknesses that this killer has. Executioner, he's never been S tier, but he's always been A tier. Ever since his release, this killer has been A tier. He's been consistently good at everything. And this is another killer where this whole, corrupt or lethal was broken. He doesn't need either of them, and he doesn't really benefit uniquely from either of them. So we had to kind of go back to the drawing board here, and Discordance, fantastic. Obviously, killers want to be bothering more than one survivor at a time whenever possible. But for Executioner, this is uniquely important because if you can find somebody who's already tormented or make more people tormented, you become that much more of a menace moving into the mid and the late and the end game. Eruption and Deadlock, fantastic gen perks. Every time a gen gets done, Deadlock tells them they can't work on the most progressed one for 30 seconds. This goes back to what we talked about before. A 90-second generator becomes 2 minutes at a minimum, assuming it doesn't re-deadlock as soon as another gen gets done. Eruption, with the faster kick time, killers like Executioner should be willing to stop and kick generators. It would be nice to have the passive regression of Ruin and to keep Ruin undying, but we're moving to active regression. Killers need to kick things. So, Eruption, great information, stops people from doing things so they can't work on generators. They can't heal. They can't do X, Y, and Z. So again, you're delaying them from doing what they need to do. And then No Way Out, if you are a smart Executioner player, you will have your 4 stacks because you will not cage on first hook and then they will just die in the cage and you lose that stack forever. Your first hook on somebody should always be a hook. And your second hook or your third hook can be the cage or the unique Mori, but you will have all 4 stacks. This locks everybody in for a minute. And with a killer like Executioner who has really a very strong power, the ability to hit multiple survivors, and kind of a discount Bubba power where he can deal with borrowed time and endurance effects, and it not really matter because his M2 cooldown is so much shorter than his M1, even with the buff coming. This is a killer who doesn't really have a lot to worry about, and this build covers the couple of things that might be a little rocky for him.
That's one thing I didn't think about. The age of getting the double downs at hooks are going to be over for Pyramid Head. You'll no longer be able to get a double down with base kit borrowed time. That's kind of sad. Yeah. That's one of my favorite things to do is Pyramid Head, when you can actually pull it off.
Yeah.
So, guys, you're definitely seeing Dead by Daylight killers. It's going back to the age of kicking generators. That's what it was a couple years ago. Just like Deck just said, the 3 gen kicking builds. That's what it was when I first started playing. It was all about that. It wasn't very passive at the time, and it evolved into passive. So we're kind of resetting, honestly. History repeats itself. Yeah. But honestly, a part of me wanted to take Deathslinger's build and throw it right here on Pyramid Head. Because to be honest, the build we just talked about, Deathslinger, would also be a really good pick for a Pyramid Head as well. They're very similar in that concept. I do like how this one has a mixture of information, mid-game, a little bit of late game, and Eruption is just overall a really good perk. I think a lot of people slept on Eruption since its release, and I think now that it's getting buffed and people are going to realize I can kick 3 generators, and then when I down somebody I get value on all 3 gens. I think when more people start realizing what Eruption can do, Eruption is going to be a top tier pick. I mean, I've been running it ever since it got released. So, I definitely think this is a pretty strong build for Pyramid Head. I don't really have any crazy things to say that you didn't really cover. So I think the main thing is staying away from hook perks, because that defeats Pyramid Head's true ability. And, you know, not being able to benefit from, like, Barbecue and Chili, Floods of Rage. Like, your best bet is going for Call of Brine and these type of Djinn perks that can give you information, like Discordance and things like that. So I think it's a pretty good build. It'll be interesting to see.
And this next one was hard.
Oh, man. We spent so much time talking about the Blight. And the biggest thing about Blight is he has completely changed with this update. So when it came to Blight, guys, like, Blight's entire being is basically nerfed with all these perk updates. I mean, Tinkerer Blights are done, and, you know, almost everything Blight did was focused around Tinkerer and zipping back and forth and holding down Djinns. So we kind of asked ourselves, like, what's the best thing for a Blight? Because the thing is, as a Blight, you don't want to be kicking generators. You don't want to be, you know, you don't have Ruin anymore. You don't have Scourge Hook Deadman Switch. You don't have all the passive regression. So what does a Blight do in game? And honestly, like, what it really boiled down to is chase. Blight is just like Nurse in the aspect of he has so much chase potential that you don't really need to focus on Djinns. The quicker you get into chase, the quicker you can end chase, and the quickest way to get into chase is with information perks like we have below. So we start off with Lethal Pursuer. That way at the very beginning of the match, you're already zipping straight to where you need to go, starting that first chase, getting that first down. If you do get them, you're able to hook them on hopefully a Scourge Hook. Every time you hook them, you get Barbecue and Chili, which tells you where to go next. While you're chasing after that person, somebody unhooks them from the hook. Now you got Flood of Rage. You have more information of where everybody is. And because we're solely focused on going from hook to hook to hook to hook, we don't want to stop and kick a generator and, you know, treat it like Deathslinger. Like, I ain't got time for that. Deathslinger's old. He can take his time to go and kick a generator, but Blight doesn't have that type of time, right? So we have Deadlock. Kind of like, at this point, Discount Corrupt. Deadlock is going to give you really all the slowdown I truly think a good Blight needs. And really, like, I think a good Blight, like Momo, for example, if we gave this build to Momo, like, yo, give him the aura reading, give him Deadlock, I guarantee those survivors probably won't get more than 3 Djinns. So that's just kind of our take. It took us a while, but I think a good Blight with information is so much better than any type of Djinn defense you could run on a Blight.
Yeah, and I will say, I didn't realize this at the time. This is almost identical to our Hillbilly build. The only difference being we put Deadlock on instead of Pain Resonance, which Billy has Pain Resonance. And thinking about it, would Pain Resonance be good on Blight? Yes. Would I rather have it than Deadlock? Absolutely not. The main difference being, obviously, Hillbilly has a very small amount of turning that he can do during his rush, or during his run. Whereas Blight, the whole point is running into something, hitting it, and then doing a sharp turn correction to continue your chase. So Pain Resonance on Billy buys you the time that you may need to get that down because you're knocking 15% off the generator. Blight doesn't really matter. Let him get the gen and then just lock another one out for 30 seconds. That's the bigger priority. Just lock the gen out when they finish one. Buy yourself 30 seconds, because really, let's go to the extreme. Let's talk about Alchemist Ring combined with Blighted Crow. An Alchemist Ring Blighted Crow Blight will end a chase in that 30-second window of Deadlock. That chase will be over. And then they will get a hook, they will look for Barbecue, and they will run off to somebody else. The point of this build is not it is not a gen rush me build. It is not an end game build. This is a build that moves from this passive regression that Blight was known for, where you took Ruin Undying, you took Tinkerer, and you just bounced around to generators, pushed people off, and then let Ruin do its thing, to now it's a, gens don't matter. If I can chain my chases, that is how I will stop them. Everybody will die, and nobody will be able to do gens. Yeah. And that, I think, is the priority here. With this change, I don't anticipate ever seeing a Blight stop to kick a generator. I expect them to just let the gens go, because they will be too busy being in chase and ending those chases very, very quickly for it to matter.
And then, I mean, that's really what it boils down to. You know, it's kind of like you said, like I didn't realize at the time, but that's one of the things that he shares in common with Hillbilly and Nurse. It's just his map mobility is insane, and a Blight in the right hands doesn't need gen regression. And that's just kind of what it boils down to. He's an S tier killer for a reason. That's really all we got on Blight. So we'll roll into the next one here.
So for the two Twins players,
another fan favorite, you know, for specifically for Lenexi out there, you know.
This it was tough to come up with a Twins build. I will say it was hard looking at what changed and coming up with something, because Twins is such a strange killer. I mean, the killer that you spend 90% of the game in doesn't have perks. How do you build for somebody like that? What do you do when your build is really only used for a very small amount of the game? And that was kind of where we were stuck for a while. This is kind of where we went. The Forced Penance, I think, has really been good on Twins ever since they came out. I can't think of a time where Twins didn't get some kind of value out of Forced Penance. So, obviously, fantastic perk, Make People Broken, which means they can't heal, which means your buffed Thana is now better all the time. That extra 0.5% stacking per survivor, that's just free slowdown. And then Thrilling and Barbecue for those few times that you will actually be using Charlotte, and she will be more than just a stationary roadblock. She gets Gen Stop, she gets information, and Barbecue gives you your aura reading, which again gives you information. And the thing that we weren't 100% on, if Victor can see auras during Floods of Rage, if hooking a survivor allows Victor to see the aura while he's running around as Victor when somebody gets unhooked on a Scourge hook, Floods of Rage will be better than Barbecue. But this is one that we didn't know, and we couldn't quickly find an answer, so we're like, just throw Barbecue on there and we'll talk about it during the podcast. If Victor is able to see the aura of Floods of Rage because it is an effect that is out of his control, which generally is kind of how Victor works. If something's out of his control, he can't directly affect it, it'll still work. If he can see the auras during Floods of Rage, swap those two. Barbecue for Floods of Rage. Because again, this Scourge Hook thing, Scourge Hooks are the meta. And with the addition of Monstrous Shrine becoming a Scourge Hook, and with the perks that they're releasing, with these Scourge Hooks being as good as they are, these will be what people will run. And now that Barbecue doesn't give blood points, who the fuck cares? It's long-range aura reading for 4 seconds only when you hook somebody, with a bunch of stupid stipulations. But Floods of Rage just happens. It's just better.
And you know, and that's kind of one thing I thought about too. Monstrous Shrine. You know, and I thought about this, you know, as you started talking about the intricacies between Victor and Charlotte, right? So one, it's like we said, Floods of Rage would be a really good perk if it works for Victor. Neither of us are Twins mains. I hate playing the Twins. I'm good at Twins, but I hate playing as them, as everybody in chat knows. But I've never really tested to see if Floods of Rage works for Victor. I know Victor can't see some auras from some perks, so it's definitely something to test. And if it does work, then hey, use it, because it's better than Barbecue. But another thing I'm curious about is, you know, the potential of Monstrous Shrine. Because the thing about Monstrous Shrine is the new Scourge Hook, Monstrous Shrine, takes all the basement hooks, turns them into Scourge Hooks, and any Scourge Hook on the map basically does what it used to do. It kills survivors faster as long as the killer is outside the 24-meter range. Well, Victor doesn't count as a killer. Victor, technically by code, is an item. So the funny thing is, and we could test this in customs too, but technically, if you take Charlotte, you hook somebody with Monster Shrine, and you leave because I don't know the distance, but you can't even be close to the hook to swap. But
Yeah.
if you walk Charlotte away outside 24 meters, or I guess inside if it matters when you swap, then you swap to Victor. Technically, and this is why I don't like twins, technically Victor can hang around that hook, camp it out, while they're still getting Monster Shrine value, killing that survivor a lot faster than they would have been. And anybody who comes to help is just going to get the little gremlin on their shoulders. So I thought about that just now. I mean, that's another really good combo you could put on here. Raz covered this build really well. The main idea of it is what perks can benefit me as Victor and what perks benefit me as Charlotte. And the real reality is the perks you're using as Charlotte need to be quick. It needs to be like you have to get value of it while you're Charlotte, which are going to be things like Barbecue and Chili, Thrilling Tremors, Flood of Rage, like things that will give you value in the short time you are Charlotte, or give you value while you're playing as Victor, like Forced Penance does. So that was just another idea I had. I don't know, might be fun to test out. Throw it at Lenexi, maybe she'll test it out for us. But
Yeah, maybe.
those are definitely some interesting ideas behind twins, and now that I'm thinking about Monster Shrine on twins, I really don't ever want to go against that.
Now I'm unhappy.
now I just told the world the secret to Monster Shrine, and now I'm like, why'd I do it?
Should have kept that in the back pocket.
should have kept that one hidden. Oh man. Alright, so moving on to our next killer, we got the fan favorite for the longest time, Trickster. Our good old friend Lunaris Slayer is a good Trickster main. So with Trickster here, we talked a little bit about Trickster. Being another long range killer, he could benefit from some of the same things as Deathslinger, Pyramid Head, and things like that. But some of the ideas that we had, and if Luna's in the chat, I would love to hear Luna's opinion on it. But basically, so we have Lethal Pursuer. For the same reason that we've been talking about before. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Game starts, get into chase as quickly as you can. And for Trickster, that's everything. So he gets into chase. You down a survivor. You put him on a Scourge hook. You're getting your pain resonance value. You go to reload at the locker after hooking them, because I assume you used your knives at some point in that chase, considering that's his power. You open the lockers, you reload, you close the lockers, boom, you see where your next target is. You go chase them down, and you rinse and repeat. Same thing with Floods of Rage. While you're chasing them, or you down that other person, somebody saves that person, they get unhooked, you get aura reading of where everybody is, you go reload again, you get an update. It's one of those things where you're a Trickster with constant information and being able to constantly go after your survivors with a passive gen regression from resonance doing the work for you. So it kind of just highlights on Trickster's chase ability. And honestly, like, information is everything in this game. And if you were to give information to some of these crazy ass Trickster mains that are out there, sometimes that's all they need.
Yeah, this build, I mean, this doesn't have a lot of gen focus, but again, we've kind of left the gen focus game, right? We've kind of gone back to information, to chase, to you stop, you kick a generator, and then you just keep right on rolling. Your gen kick is faster, so you have to spend less time doing it, and then you just go right into chase again, and you continue doing what you were doing. And this build, you take 15% off of a generator somewhere, because now you're not going to know with the way pain resonance works after 6.1. But somewhere a gen loses 15%, and you've got Floods of Rage, so as soon as that person gets unhooked, you see where everybody is, and you see them for 2 seconds longer because of Lethal Pursuer. And if they just leave this person to rot on the hook for hours, Eventually, you got to reload, so you get Darkness Revealed, and you get 2 seconds longer on Darkness Revealed because of Lethal Pursuer. So it is a build where, again, if you don't live in a locker, just like Ghostface, Trickster will know where you're at. And I think that this going to information about survivor locations as opposed to generator progress, because that's kind of what we left, was things like, Tinkerer telling you when gens were about to be done, and Ruin allowing you to just kind of walk by and look at it. Now you're going to take a much more proactive role in bouncing between chase and ending chase quickly and moving to your next target. And information builds on these, not necessarily high-octane fast killers, but these very powerful 1v1 killers will be a game changer. This build and builds like this make Trickster, who is already a monster, even scarier for people who may not know how to play against him or may have played against him less. So this is a build that I'm hopeful to see in action, that it plays out the way that it plays out in my head. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Like, I have it in my head how it's going to play out. I just hope it does.
Yeah.
So it's definitely one of those interesting concepts. And that's the big thing, too, here to remember. Is remember that gens are changing. The kicks are faster, they do more damage, and the gens actually regress more than the previous, like, dry kicks. So you don't technically need gen regression, which is kind of why, we're talking about the focus shifting to information. Trickster doesn't need to focus so much on corrupt intervention and Pop Goes a Weasel and Ruin, because if he's just going back-to-back chasing and getting people with aura reading, he doesn't really need that. If you create enough chase pressure, you're gonna naturally create gen pressure. It'd be very interesting to see this in play. We might have to bug Luna and be like, "Yo, test this out."
Check this build for me. Let me know how it works.
Hey, Luna, we need you to bring out your crack trickster tricks. Dust off the shelf.
Yeah, so next on the list is Nemi.
Good old Nemesis.
And this kind of took me a little bit of thinking, because I was considering, I don't run Corrupt on Nemesis. Right now, I am a big believer in the Ruin Pop Tinkerer, disgusting, basic bitch, every killer and their mother runs this build because it's good. And it took me a while looking at the perks and looking at what was changing and trying to figure out, how do I make a build that allows me to do what I do now as Nemesis, but without the merciless storm aspect of Tinkerer, of it only working one time, of Ruin being so much weaker, and as soon as somebody dies it's gone anyway, and Pop moving from total progress to current progress and going from 25% to 20%. What can I make a good build that still gives me what I need? And this, again, this Lethal Pursuer Floods of Rage thing coming in strong. This early game information. Lethal Pursuer, obviously it's Nemi's perk, but get in chase. Get your first tentacle hit. Get your second tentacle hit. Get your tier 2. Become a killer, because really in tier 1 there's not much going for Nemesis. He's not really a threat. So get your early tentacle hits, get your information. Floods of Rage for when you down somebody, again allowing you to move seamlessly between chases after downing and hooking somebody when they get unhooked. Discordance, this has been talked about a few times. I don't know if everybody knows it yet though. Zombies respond to Discordance. Zombies will understand when there's a loud noise notification from Discordance, and they will move toward it. So that's, not necessarily pressure, because again, with Ruin being gone, your zombies aren't pushing people off a generator and watching it tick back down, but your zombies can be a helping hand. They are information, and as killer, information is everything. We've talked about it. Information is key. So Discordance, getting your zombies' attention, waking Sally up when she's stuck in a corner, because zombies still get stuck. They haven't fixed it. Behavior, please. I'm begging you. And you know, in Eruption again, we're moving to active regression. We want to see killers kicking things. Kicking is faster. It doesn't take as long now. Just stop and do it. And Eruption getting this tremendous buff, you know, nearly doubling the incapacitated time, nearly doubling the amount of gen regression that every single generator loses with Eruption. These perks are going to be so valuable on every killer, and Nemesis being chase oriented and being able to eat through pallets and being as strong as he is when he creates these dead zones, you've got time. If you need to stop and kick a generator because there's no pallet nearby, but you're trying to actively chase somebody, drop the chase for, what is it, 1.8 seconds, I think, now to kick a generator. Take those 1.8 seconds, kick the gen, and then pick the survivor's trail back up again, because if you're in a dead zone, it's not like they've made it anywhere. And I don't know. I personally don't feel like Nemesis really needs endgame. He's weak in early game, so you account for that with lethal and with discordance, and then he scales into mid and late, where you can get value out of Eruption, where you can keep getting discordance, where you can keep getting floods of rage. And if it gets to endgame, you're a big dude who moves fast and you've got 2 minions that look around for you. You're all right.
Yeah, and when it comes to Nemesis, I mean, he is an information killer. A lot of people, you know, I don't think really truly know how to use the zombies. Like, the zombies give you so much information, like free information. If they raise their hands up and they put it in a certain direction, they saw a survivor going that way. They're following the survivor. And honestly, you know, in my experience, if you just walk up and ask Sally and Frank, you know, hey, where'd they go? They'll normally tell you. So, you know, the zombies speak, so, you know, listen to them sometimes. But when you take, like, the zombies' information compared with Discordance, compared with Lethal Pursuer, with Floods of Rage, what more could you ask for? It's a killer's dream. You have constant information of where to go and what to do, and it, you know, me and Raz both like to main Nemesis. You know, Nemesis is my secondary. I think it slowly kind of became one of Raz's primaries over time, but
yeah, it did.
Yeah, when you take Nemesis, like, the big thing is getting out of tier 1. If you're stuck in tier 1, it's going to be a bad game and you're going to lose. But the faster you get to tier 2, the faster you get to tier 3, the faster you have a chance of actually, like, just demolishing the game. And I think these perks really kind of help set that up. And I do know, we did talk about it too, where it's like, you know, the perks that I had on Deathslinger, it was kind of like, man, I just kind of want to throw these onto Nemesis as well. It's actually funny because I used to, when Nemesis first came out and Eruption was a thing, that's when I added Eruption to my Deathslinger build, because I didn't used to obviously have Eruption. And before I started using the build on Slinger, I tested it with Nemesis, and it's the same concept. It's just, it's that good on these mid-range killers, you know, that have a type of range, but not like full map wide like Artis and Huntress can. So you could go for the informational aspect, which is what we have here, or you could go for the gen aspect, which is what we had on Deathslinger. Like that's the beautiful thing about Nemesis. There's 2 ways to play him. There's multiple ways, but I think this is a really good setup for him. I think information on Nemesis is really strong, really powerful, because once you get into chase, it won't take you long to end it, especially if you know how to drag tech.
Yeah, that first chase might take a while because you got to get 3 hits, but after that, when you go back down to regular 2 hits on everybody, survivors don't expect you coming around the corner with the tentacle already coming down on their head.
With that being said, we're going to move on to our next killer. So now we got Pinhead. And this one was kind of interesting as well. Pinhead's one of those weird killers where he has the potential to have a lot of natural pressure, whether it's chase pressure, whether it's gen pressure, just general map pressure, right? But it really relies on his box. If you are a Pinhead and you know how to get your box at the very start of the game using Lethal Pursuer, then that is honestly pretty game-changing for Pinhead. The more you get your box from those survivors and activate it, the more those survivors are getting harassed, and the harder it is for them to complete their new objective of 90-second generators. If you don't know how to use Lethal Pursuer with Pinhead, I would definitely go check out Ottstarva's video. He made a video about it a long time ago. And some Pinhead mains have mastered this art. And so one of the things that we talked about, because I used to use Corrupt Intervention. I would use Corrupt Intervention to find the box. It's not as effective as the Lethal Pursuer method, but it still worked. But one of the things me and Raz talked about was finding the box. That is the main thing. Like, you can find it at the start, but then later on in the game, it's kind of like crap. Like, I guess when I find it, I find it. Or maybe you catch that survivor who's trying to open it, you interrupt them, which is what you want to do. But let's say that doesn't happen. Let's say you can interrupt them. Let's say the box is somewhere and you have no idea where. But with Lethal Pursuer adding range or adding more time to your aura reading, and you come in with Floods of Rage, and I'd like to test it out, but my theory is if you have Floods of Rage and you see where everybody is and the timing's right, you could probably figure out where the box is going to spawn. So, one, you're getting information on survivors, but you're possibly getting more information on the box's potential location. Deadlock is Pinhead's perk for a reason. Really good slowdown. I mean, it's your discount Corrupt Intervention. And then, of course, like every other killer, I'm not going to repeat everything, but we have Jolt on there because Pinhead is an M1 killer. It allows you to focus on chase, finding your box while still getting some passive regression. Cenobite's A tier, can't change Deck's mind. Cenobite in the right hands could definitely be an A tier killer. That's kind of the idea we had with this build. Finding the box and getting as many chases in as possible.
Yeah, and I will say one thing I didn't think about while we were putting this together: the ability to pair this build and the way that this works with the Eerie box add-on, where the survivors can't see the box either unless there's a chain hunt going on.
Oh, that's true. Gives you a little bit of an advantage.
Well, and if you as the Cenobite have Floods of Rage, and the survivors can't see the box because the chain hunt hasn't started, but they go and they unhook a survivor, and you get Floods of Rage, you can figure out where the box is, and they won't see it. So you will be able to figure out where the box is before even the survivors have the chance to figure out where the box is. But overall, again, we're kind of moving to this, you either run lethal or you run corrupt, and chances are on Pinhead, you're really not going to be able to take advantage of 2 minutes of corrupt because you want to get in chase. You don't have anything to set up. You don't have a reason to have corrupt. You don't have anything. You're not trying to do a side objective. You're not scouting for information. So lethal is just a better option. And then pair that with information like Floods of Rage to continue to get value out of the buffed Lethal Pursuer. And that will be better for you in the long run than having Corrupt Intervention for maybe 45 seconds and then somebody goes down. Again, you're getting half or less of a perk that is then gone for the rest of the game, whereas Lethal Pursuer now is not gone for the rest of the game like it used to be.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy we're even talking about like some of these perk changes when you really think about it. Like, did I ever think Corrupt would get nerfed like this? Nah, never.
Nope.
Never even thought it was a problem. Even from the survivor aspect, never thought it was a problem. And then lethal getting a buff, like, that's nice. That's nice. So, it's definitely some interesting changes. But yeah, Pinhead's pretty straightforward. I think it'll be kind of interesting to see and kind of test out once we get around to it. Because I do like frequenting, Pinhead every now and then. With that, we're on to the next one. Good old Kamina.
The Artiste, and this is why we have Deck here. This build was something that we put together, and we kind of fought over the fourth perk here. We kind of went back and forth and kind of, no, it would be better to run this one. No, this would be better. And this is where we went.
We debated for a bit on the fourth perk here, and then we were like, you know what? Like, we'll try this one out. So, yeah, it's nice to have Deck here. For everybody else in chat, Deck's an artist main. So, Deck, we'll throw out our opinions on why we chose this build, and honestly, we'd love to see what your opinion is moving forward if you want to throw it in chat as well. All you, Raz, all you.
Yeah, so we went to Corrupt here, and this might be a little bit of a point of contention here, taking Corrupt on a killer who can get map-wide downs and who can get very quick downs. But generally, you're scouting early with your birds just to know things. You're not sending your birds out to get that first hit, that first down early on. You just want to know things. You're just figuring out kind of orienting yourself, orienting to the survivors. So Corrupt is still a viable choice here because you're getting 2 minutes where you're just kind of putting the pieces of the map puzzle together. And then we just went full hardcore into the Scourge hooks. The reason being, Artist doesn't need to camp. Artist can go away and go bother other people and just drop off a bird and just go somewhere else. So Monstrous Shrine does not lose any value. Again, turning all 4 of your basement hooks into Scourge hooks and making all Scourge hooks kill everybody faster if you're farther away. Floods of Rage being incredible information at all stages of the game, and Pain Resonance now not giving you the information of survivors screaming or the gen blowing up, but it is 15% off of a gen somewhere. So you drop a survivor off on a Scourge hook, you blow up a generator, you go somewhere else, that survivor is now dying. I think it's 20% faster. I don't think it's 25. I think it's 20% faster. So that survivor's dying quicker on the hook, which means more survivors have to leave their generators to come and get them. And then Floods of Rage being information as soon as somebody does come and get them. And you just throw a bird back and you set up for potentially another hit, you set up for a snipe, or you just get information of having the birds on somebody and discouraging them from doing things because they might get sniped.
Yeah, it was definitely like trying to figure out what's the best way to approach Artist, because Artist has full map, like cross map capabilities. She's one of the only long range killers that really can do it. Like Huntress can, but not as effectively. But the big thing is it's like Raz said when it came to Corrupt Intervention, like I would be amazed if you get a down with just her crows within those 2 minutes. You know, like just the crows, right? That's a lot of summonings, that's a lot of hits. So I think the idea behind using Corrupt was it just buys that extra time for Artists to find her first chase and get into it. Ironically, the reason the devs made Corrupt this way fits Artists, in my opinion, to where the devs made Corrupt Intervention to where it gives that killer the time to find their chase, get their down, and you're not going to lose like 2 gens in that chase, right? Theoretically. So I think Corrupt is probably one of the she's probably one of the only killers that's not a setup killer that could actually benefit from Corrupt. Do you need to run it? Probably not. I see Deck mentioned he's already curious if Discordance would be better. Discordance probably, it'd be a good perk on there. I think that's one of the ones we actually discussed for a bit. Yeah. Being able to have that information, sending a crow with that generator. If you got the add-on that shares the crows with other survivors as they touch each other. I forget what it's called, but it's one of my favorite ones to run on her. If you have that mixed in, then it's very, very, could be just as effective. And I think the whole Scourge hook idea we went here with was, you know, one of the obviously the perk we were going back and forth on was Monstrous Shrine. I kind of pitched Monstrous Shrine. I thought there would be a lot of value behind it. So it would be kind of interesting because she does have the potential to walk away from those hooks and send crows at the hooks. And if you're smart and you just send one crow and it hits somebody, you know, you're able to send another crow and possibly get an injured state even across however the distance is. So it's kind of interesting. So Dex says Artist has great potential of getting it down across the map if you can read the survivors, but super early I doubt. I feel like in Suffocation Pit or ARP, Corrupt would be good for sure. And that's kind of like the consensus that we went with this build. Now, could you run some of like the gen regressions that we've talked about? Like 100% you could, but we feel like the information that you get from Floods of Rage with the combination of Monstrous Shrine and Pain Resonance, like I think it'd be interesting to see. I think it'd be I think she's one of the only killers that could pull off a build like this. Let's put it that way. That's not S tier. You know, like Nurse and Blight and etc.
This was a fun one to lean into the Scourge hooks a little bit more on a less popular killer.
Let's see. Dex says bigger maps Corrupt just makes 3 gens. I don't have to shoot birds at it, which is good. I agree with Monstrous Shrine because I just hook and leave. Yeah. So kind of the thought process I had. Monstrous Shrine would be interesting to see on Artist.
Yeah, the ability to again, you're a killer that doesn't really benefit from camping. You're a killer that doesn't need to be close by to still be a threat. So Monstrous Shrine now being on all of your Scourge hooks just making survivors die faster, that's great. That's less time that the other survivors have, which means they need to get off those gens faster. And when they get off those gens and when they go get that save, that's information from Floods of Rage. The whole build kind of pulls itself together.
Yeah, I like how each perk complements each other.
Yeah.
Like, it actually has really good synergy, so... Deck, if you ever test out this build after the update drops, shoot us a message. Let us know how it went for you, because I'm curious.
I am too.
I think it'd be pretty good. Like, I wanted to find a killer to use Monstrous Shrine on, and I'm so happy. Like the idea with Artis, I think it would work out. And hearing Deck agree with it, now I really want to see it in action.
Yeah, somebody that's not Bubba that can use Monstrous Shrine.
Yeah, somebody who's not Bubba. Oh man! All right, so
or Onryo. Here we go.
This one was quite hard, to be honest. So Sadako came into the game. She's one of the most recent killers right before Dredge. And, during the PTB, she was really strong, really powerful, because people just didn't know how to counter her. But since we've had time to play as her, experience her, go against her, she's very weak. Her teleporting's fairly decent. I wouldn't say strong. I would say it's decent. But her chase is just so bad. There's a lot of pallets, a lot of weak loops that for her are actually kind of like medium strong. It's hard for her to get around some loops, some chases. So when we were trying to think of a build that would benefit her, we were trying to think of, what's the aspect to take? Because chase, like a chase-oriented build isn't actually going to benefit her too much. A gen regression build's not going to benefit her too much. I will say one thing about Sadako, she does have the ability to have insane map pressure if she can teleport constantly across the map with hit and run tactics and things like that. If it's an indoor map, you're most likely just going to succeed because of the killer. You are. But if it's an outdoor map, you're going to struggle a lot harder as Sadako. When it comes to this perk build we have below, it's kind of the same concept as before. So we put Corruptor Intervention on her not because she takes setup time, but because it gives her time to find her first victim. Before she can teleport, she actually has to wait a cooldown period at the beginning of the match, which I believe is like 30 seconds to somewhere around 30. It's like between 30 to what? 40?
Something like that, yeah. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
Yeah, she has a small cooldown period, so during this you can't teleport. And Corruptor Intervention's blocked, so the way I see it, it's a trade for trade. You can't teleport, they have 3 gens they can't touch. By the time you find somebody and you down them, honestly, Corruptor Interventions kind of has done its work. It's bought you some more time to do what you need to do. And for those of you that don't know, Sadako actually has built-in whispers. If you walk up to one of her TVs and the TVs are on and it's playing her tape, that means there is a survivor within 16 meters of that TV, just like whispers. So if you walk up and you just see the TV's on with a white screen, there's no survivors nearby. Go to the next one. Obviously, if you teleport to a TV, the TV's going to shut off and you're not going to know. But like if you're just walking around and you walk past your TV, that's a little inside Sadako tip for those that didn't know. So the fact that she has some natural built-in information, Corrupt Intervention gives her time to find that survivor. Deadlock's going to give her time to slow the game down a bit, kind of help her out somewhat in chase by giving her more time. And honestly, we did the Pain Resonance and Monster Shrine combo for Sadako because the faster you can get somebody out of the game and make that game a 3v1, the more of a chance you have to win as Sadako. So if you can take somebody, put them on a Scourge Hook, get some gen regression, get them dying faster, teleport the heck out of there and go after your next victim, you're probably going to have a lot higher of a chance of getting someone out of the game early and winning, because she was pretty hard to make a build for just because of all the things that she has going against her. But that was kind of the idea behind it.
Yeah, I think it's really unfortunate that Sadako seemed like such a cool concept, right? And she was so interesting. And then she actually dropped and she didn't live up to it. And I joke about Sadako all the time. The difference between Sadako and Trapper is that Trapper can actually do something at a pallet. This poor killer who just man, she looks so cool, and her skin is so awesome, and the power is so interesting, and you just never condemn anybody ever, and your TVs just don't do anything, and you just don't have a power in chase. It was so hard to come up with something that was like, if I went against this build, would I actually feel threatened by this killer? And this, I think, is the closest we're gonna get. The being able to blow up a generator with pain resonance, being able to kill the person faster with Monstrous Shrine, stopping gens from just flying in her face with Deadlock, and giving her a little bit of time early on with Corrupt was like, looking at it, this was the most intimidating that I could make this, 3-foot tall ghost. There's not much else I can give to her that makes her a threat, and my hope is with the faster gen kicks, with the faster pallet breaks, and honestly for her with the faster bloodlust, I hope this makes Sadako decent. I don't know if it will.
And the one thing about bloodlust a lot of people don't know too is you actually earn bloodlust whether you're manifested or demanifested. So yeah. That's a good plus, because you could honestly chase a survivor in your ghost form, get the bloodlust needed to hit them, then materialize and hit them. And at the same time, like, why can't we just phase through a pallet when we're dematerialized?
Yeah.
Like, I can phase through a person, but I can't phase through a pallet or a window.
Yeah.
Maybe a conversation for another day, like Sadako buffs, please, behavior.
Yeah, something to make her not suck just because you wanted to draw attention to your newest killer. That would be great.
Yeah, and then you kind of released this next guy and kind of smacked Sadako and was like, bye.
Yeah, just threw her in the trash and laughed at her.
It's like, hey, here's a Sadako 2.0 with a much better teleport. Welcome. Hello. Say hello to the Dredge.
Yeah, guess what? This is just the last killer, but way better because it's an original.
but that's kind of it for Sadako, guys. I gotta say, out of all these killers, this was the hardest one. And I'm sure there's probably a better build. We just genuinely couldn't come up with one. And this was the best one that we had, and I don't know. I'll have to test it out, see how it goes.
Yeah, Sadako was rough, but Dredge, our new Hell Turkey killer, this was I enjoyed coming up with a build for Dredge, because Dredge has so many different avenues that you could pursue that it was fun to come up with a build that, like, however you want to play Dredge, you will find some value in this build. If you want to be completely reliant on Nightfall and you just want survivors to be confused and that's how you want to go about it, this build has something for you. If you want to play a Dredge that's more locker-based teleports and, jumping out at people and scaring them, and that's how you want to play your Dredge, you can do that with this build. So again, the Lethal Pursuer or Corrupt. Lethal Pursuer is a better option because Dredge is going to get in chase and you're going to knock somebody down. The not being able to teleport early on does mean that you will get value from Lethal Pursuer just to know where survivors are headed. Maybe you see that 2 of the survivors stop off and work on a gen, and another survivor goes to, like, the middle of nowhere and starts breaking a totem. You don't have a locker nearby, so you know that that's not the one you want to go for. And then the 4th survivor goes into the basement because they're a fucking maniac and they want to hang out in the basement and open a chest. So you get your early game value, and then again, we're transitioning to Scourge Hooks, Pain Resonance, and Floods of Rage for much the same reason that we've talked about a million times before. Floods of Rage is great information on Unhook. Pain Resonance is great, gen regression, and now you can't see which gen it is, but Dredge moves around the map so fast, who cares? It's free gen regression, essentially, for doing your job, and Dredge can take advantage of wherever that generator may be, because he teleports around everywhere, and he teleports so damn fast. And then Jolt was just kind of the tie it all together, because again, he's an M1 killer, he has to M1 to down people, there's no lethality from an M2. So he's always going to get value from Jolt and Pain Res stack on each other.
Yeah, when it comes to Dredge, being the newest killer in the game, and he's definitely still in kind of like the try me out phase. Like a lot of people are still learning the ropes of what can be done with this killer. They're still trying to figure it out. A lot of people are saying he's very high A tier. Some people are saying he's S tier. I'm saying I freaking hate Nightfall, and it just completely makes me run into everything. But when it comes down to it, I think this was a pretty good build. It definitely covers the basis, like Raz said. I mean, you have a little bit of everything. You have the information you need to know to get from point A to point B. You have the gen regression. And honestly, Dredge is just, his map pressure is insane. Like, he is what Freddy and Sadako dreamed that they could be when it comes to teleporting.
Yeah.
He brings the confusion to the table that Doctor wishes he could implement. Like, he has a mixture of so many different things to where he's literally just insanely, like, I don't even want to say like overpowered, because he's still pretty fairly balanced. It's just, you know, when you have Nightfall hit and this dude can teleport instantaneously to almost every locker, and he has an add-on that shows him auras when he gets to his last locker that's increased by Lethal Pursuer, and he has all this other stuff. Like, he has the potential to be anywhere and everywhere at the same point in time. So these perks aren't really carrying him. These perks are just benefiting his natural movement and gameplay. The few times I've gone against him, I have died very quickly. The few times I've played as him, other survivors have just been caught clueless. So it's definitely gonna be interesting to see what perks people come out with him. But I think this build of Lethal Pursuer, Pain Resonance, Jolt, and Floods of Rage kind of captured every little factor of him. And no matter what, he's gonna get value out of one of these perks. And any value for Dredge is good value.
Yeah, he's a strong killer. Again, I don't want to say that he's overpowered, because frankly, I don't think he is. I think that recent, quality of life update that they did where they adjusted his ranges during Nightfall a little bit, I think that was good. It was what he needed. And he's in a good spot. I think he's strong enough to be a menace, but not so powerful that you go into a game against a Dredge and you're like, oh, cool, we've just lost already. So these perks do nothing for him other than accentuate what he's already good at and just add to the things that he already has going for him. The popping generators, the information, the ability to lengthen the information, combined with his traversal speed, is a great combination of things that, again, this is not an impossible to beat kind of build. This is not the build you'll go in 4K every single match and you can go on, 100 win streaks or whatever. But as a good Dredge, I'm sure you could.
As long as you got lockers, you're good to go. It's like Deck was talking about Shelter Woods. It's probably the worst map for him because there's just not a lot of lockers.
Not a lot of anything on that map.
So, with all that being said, guys, that's our review in basically what we think is going to be some of the upcoming metas for these killers, or just really good builds in general if you want to try it out. If you do try it out, be sure to let us know. But we do have the tail end of our final segments here on Totem Talks. So, with the conclusion of our main topic, we're going to roll back over to Totem Trivia, see if who got this answer right, go over that with you guys, roll out to some campfire thoughts, roll into our final outro, and that's really going to be it for today. So, without a further ado, let's head back on over to Totem Trivia and see if you got the answer correct.
Yeah, so again, our question was, how much faster did Brutal Strength make kicks originally, and what was the downside? Because there was a downside, it wasn't just free. And your options are 40, 50, 60, but on a cooldown, 10, 20, 30, but only on pallets, 80, 90, 100, but only after a hook, or 25, 30, 35, but only after a gen finished. And the truth, from way back in the day, from 1.0.0, it was 10, 20, 30, but you only kicked pallets faster. There was no kicking any generators any quicker. And these pallets, this is a little freebie for you that I'll throw on top. Pallets were not called pallets, they were called barricades. So we'll head to the office, give you the campfire thoughts, and then I think we'll probably get out of here.
Alrighty.
So welcome back to our office, our newsroom here for our campfire thoughts. And this one today, I wanted to give you guys something a little different, something that it's obscure enough that I'm not sure people know about it. So originally, killers didn't have multiple facial expressions. Every killer was just kind of stagnant. They were locked in one look. And this actually changed when Clown came out. Clown was the first killer to ever have more than one facial expression, who then immediately was beaten by Spirit when Spirit came out as the next chapter, because they created a whole new facial expression rig for Spirit so that her face could, you know, twist and contort, and she could make all those odd faces that she makes while she's phasing around. And she still has the most complex facial expressions from all the way back in Chapter 9, Shattered Bloodlines, Chapter 9, and we're on 24, 26, I think 24 now, I think was Dredge. So she still has the most facial expressions of any killer, and you don't ever see them as the killer.
All right, guys. So, with all that being said, that concludes today's episode of Totem Talks. So we went over some fun trivia, some campfire thoughts with Raz's glorious facts, random knowledge.
The random things that I know.
Definitely, let us know what you guys think. If you got any conversations, any topics you think would be fun to talk about in the future, let us know. When I finally get this on YouTube, you guys can comment below. Or you guys can hit us up on Twitter or in the Discord. Let us know what you want to hear about, what we want to talk about. We're here to talk about anything that the community might be into or that we think of. So any advice helps. We don't have any community clips for today, but hopefully next time we can get some community clips submitted so we can do some fun video reviews. But other than that, this has been fun. Thanks for hanging out. If you stuck through every single killer, power to you. It took us a long time to set that up. We spent a lot of time on the production piece for this one since we were doing it live. It came out really great. So glad we didn't have any technical issues today. Don't jinx it. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
But honestly, it was a good one. I can't wait to catch you guys next week for the next one. And that's really all I got. Raz, you got any closing remarks?
Yeah, I think the only thing, thanks for being patient. Sorry we ran a little late today because we were finalizing everything and making sure that everything worked. And there were a couple of things that we caught before we went live, so I'm glad we did that. But yeah, I'm curious to see if anybody has anything in particular that they want to know about for next week. And I like seeing the clips, so hopefully we get some good ones for next week. I know we didn't have any this time, but hopefully we get some good ones for next week, and I'll rack my brain for some more obscure things that I can tell you guys about next week. But until then, I think that's all I got.